if I manage my expectations down, it can't be boring.
I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. This is a regular meeting for Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
I will. Tim Hale.
Here.
Stephanie Nowers. Here. I'm expecting Dee McKee. Robert Yunt, are you on the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Bill Gamble.
Here.
Dimitri Fonoff.
Here.
Ron Bernier.
Here.
Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there anything that any of the members would like to pull from the consent agenda? Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'd like to pull ordinance 24078 and resolution 24072 that are under public hearings. There's an error in the legislation. We'll bring back a new copy.
Okay. Okay. Is there any objection? Assemblyperson Fonoff, do you have an objection or you?
No, I was gonna pull something else.
You have something else, okay. So is there any objection? Assemblyperson Hale or Ron, somebody down there has their light on. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so Assemblyperson Ponoff, you have another item?
RS 24075.
Okay. Any other changes, requests to pull? Okay. So hearing no additional ones, then the agenda is approved with those two different changes. If you all stand, Assemblyperson Hale, since you're joining us this evening, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There are no meeting minutes that have been presented. We have agency reports. Do we have any reports from the cities? No? Okay, I don't see anything. School district, oh yeah, there you are.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Assembly, Manager Brown. For the record, Katie Gardner, Deputy Superintendent for the Mat-Su-Borough School District. I am pleased to report that officially the school year is underway. We've just completed day 4 for most of our schools. Charter schools have slightly different schedules. And so far, it's been a very smooth start to the school year. We have 18,698 students who've completed the enrollment process as of today. So we're a little bit shy of the 19,412 that we hope to have as the count begins September 30th. In addition, we have all transportation routes that are running. I know the last 2 years we've talked a lot about transportation, so we're off to a very good start. The numbers of all Mat-Su drivers are the highest that they've been, and we have additional drivers in training. So we're feeling very good about the start of the school year for transportation. Still a few things that, of course, with the logistics of getting between 10 and 12,000 students to school every day on transportation, with road construction and some other delays, we're still working through the routines, but so far it's been a very good start. I'll also mention that most fall activities are underway, so there are lots of opportunities to root for your favorite team and get involved in schools. I know football started on Friday. We've got volleyball, cross-country running, and a whole host of other activities that students can be involved in. And we're seeing some of our highest participation numbers ever, which is very exciting. And then the last reminder for the Assembly, as well as anyone who's listening, we do have a regular school board meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. For individuals who can't attend, you can watch all of the meetings are live streamed on our Facebook page. So thank you very much for your support, and we hope the remaining 171 days are just as smooth.
Good, we agree with you on that. It's my understanding there has not been a joint assembly, a school board committee. Are there any public relations reports? Let the record show that Assemblyperson McKee has joined us.
6:05.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't hear any public relations reports. Mr. Brown, do you have a report for us, sir?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm going to invite Tom Adams up. I think he's hiding in the wings, our Public Works Director. He's going to give you a quick update on the Talkeetna Public Assistance to States report from the Army Corps of Engineers about the Talkeetna erosion issue. It happens to be IM 24-135 on your agenda, so you have hard copies of the report itself, but we thought we would call it out, provide a quick summary, allow you to ask questions, just so that it didn't get missed. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Adams.
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Member Assembly, Mr. Brown. As a suggestion, I'm going to give you a quick update on some work that the Corps of Engineers has been doing for the community of Talkeetna and the erosion taking place on the Susitna and Talkeetna River. So as described, there is a IM tonight on the agenda, 24-135, where the MSB previously entered into an agreement with the Corps of Engineers to perform an erosion assessment along the east bank of Susitna River near the community of Talkeetna under the Planning Assistance for States Program. This program is authorized under Section 22 of the Water Resource Development Act, allows the Corps to provide technical assistance concerning water resource management to an eligible non-federal interest, in this case, the Matsu Borough. The Corps visited Talkeetna in June 2023 to inspect the existing erosion control structures, observe the extent of riverbank erosion, and assess site conditions to best identify erosion mitigation measures. Technical report describing their findings, analysis, and proposed erosion mitigation measures is attached to the IM. So generally, the report describes a history of riverbank erosion and mitigation response dating back to 1951, when the Corps constructed a timber fascine erosion control structure along the Talkeetna River in an emergency effort to mitigate bank erosion at the town of Talkeetna. The fascine began at the Alaska Railroad embankment and extended 1,000 feet downstream along the left bank of the Talkeetna River. Remnants of the fascine's vertical railroad dikes may still be seen in the river today. 1979, a 642-foot dike, a 508-foot dike extension, and 1,650-foot revetment were constructed by the Corps and then turned over to the borough for operation and maintenance. These structures were designed to protect the town from riverbank erosion and are subject to periodic inspection by both the Corps and borough. I think it's important to recognize the fact that these structures were to protect against erosion and not flooding. These structures have experienced significant erosion since they were built, with most of the erosion occurring after the 2012 flood, when the main stem of the Susitna River shifted to flow against the east bank, directly hitting the end of the dike extension and forming eddies. An engineered repair was needed on the dike extension after the 2012 flood and was completed by FEMA in 2017. In 2020, emergency repairs were performed by the borough due to severe erosion along the dike extension revetment. Severe erosion continues to occur at the confluence of the Talkeetna and Susitna rivers after the dike extension, where a large and deep eddy has formed since 2017, which is measured to be up to 40 feet deep during the summer. Since initiation of this PAS study and subsequent analysis of data through 2020, a significant erosion event occurred in August and September 2023, last fall, as you might remember, that caused the borough to conduct emergency repairs of the revetment. The borough recently received bids to complete additional repairs of the dike extension, and rock revetment. Award of that contract is on the Assembly's September 2nd agenda, your next meeting, and work is expected to be completed this year. The main channel, the Susitna River, below its confluence with Chulitna River, has been migrating east towards Talkeetna since approximately 2012. This has caused flow to be directed along the eastern riverbank. The combination of eddies and concentrated flow against the bank has led to a rapid increase in erosion since the start of migration. A large portion of the existing revetment that was constructed by the Corps in 1979 was washed away during the most recent high water event in fall 2023. The erosion taking place threatens infrastructure along the river. The entire town of Talkeetna and surrounding low areas are located in an active floodplain and are susceptible to major damage from flooding and stream erosion. Improved erosion mitigation measures are needed. The purpose of this PAS is to estimate erosion rates in Talkeetna along the east bank of the Susitna River below its confluence with the Chulitna. These erosion rates estimates are intended to form planning decision by MSB, local community members, and private landowners regarding development of erosion reduction structures within Talkeetna. 3 main areas were identified with the highest erosion rates. Areas 1 and 2 are basically near the previously constructed erosion mitigation measures, the dike extension revetment. And there's a third area now that's under an area of concern, is downstream where the Alaska Railroad is adjacent to the Susitna River. In recent years, many riverfront properties along the Susitna River have experienced significant and rapid erosion events. Erosion is expected to continue, threatening existing infrastructure and the longevity of any new development. This study will directly support the state of Alaska's hazard mitigation plan by addressing mitigation and response to riverine erosion and will assist with resiliency planning and long-term sustainability of the Talkeetna community. Since the Corps has limited authority to assist in riverine-induced erosion, proposed mitigation measures only include a planning level of detail and do not include a detailed design suitable for project construction. The Corps Alaska District recommends a rock revetment for long-term stream bank protection. Information and data presented in the PAS study will be used to support the borough's request for funding from the Continuing Authorities Program, another Corps of Engineers funding opportunity. The borough submitted a request for CAP funding last September. To date, no funding has been awarded. Obviously, what it really boils down to is there is still a problem. There is not really a plan, a thorough plan to mitigate against that problem, and there's definitely not the funding necessary to implement the improvements that would be necessary to mitigate. With that being said, I should also mention that the borough is lobbying our congressional delegates for language changes that would allow the Corps of Engineers to address riverine erosion. And Mr. Brown can give a brief synopsis of what's going on there.
Thanks, Mr. Adams. So through the mayor to the assembly, we just wanted to call this to your attention. I know it's a sobering assessment. The reality is limited funding, limited authorities, and no solution. So the special service area that's in place to fund maintenance of these structures does not ever generate enough revenue to do that. And this is not uncommon. We have the same problem on the Mat River. We've had this issue in the past, right? We've got dikes down near Circle View that we have in a special service area. So I just wanted to call it out. We're going to continue to pursue the CAP funding. I don't know where that'll go. We also have Senator Sullivan's office. We've reached out to him. The WRDA language that Tom talked about, the Water Resource Development Act, in Alaska, the specific provisions allow FEMA, or allow the Corps actually, to go in and protect against coastal erosion, but not riverine erosion. So we're trying to get a riverine or river provision in there, but as you can imagine, that opens a can of worms for every river in the state of Alaska. So it's sticky. The problem's not going to go away. We're going to be in a good spot after this repair for now, but obviously, every time you get into a spring breakup or a large water event, the opportunity is there to present a larger issue. So we just want to keep it on your radar. There's really no action for you to take tonight. Other than just your awareness that we're going to close out this PAS. It's planning level and it doesn't generate solutions or funding to construct solutions. So it's going to be something we're just going to have to continue to pursue. So we just wanted to make you aware of that instead of just throwing it on as an IM and it getting missed. And then maybe we have an event in the future and folks are like, well, why is that a problem? Because we don't have a solution. We had hoped years ago when the Corps of Engineers engaged in this, it got converted to a PAS, that would help us get there, but then we realized there's limited authorities for the Corps to go in and do riverine erosion. This is not a flooding issue, it's an erosion issue. And that technical differentiation's the problem. So just awareness at this point. I think that's all, unless you had anything to add, Tom? I'm good.
And we're good, except just recognize that there will be legislation brought forward next month for further work to be conducted this fall.
Assemblyperson Nowers, question?
I had never heard the word riverine, so thanks for that. I'm just curious, in the last 10 years, do you have any sense for how much has gone into the work out there, and rough percentages of how much has come out of borough coffers versus federal or state? Is it 80-20 or 50-50?
So through the mayor to Assemblymember Nauer, so this PAS study requires a 50% contribution. So the money that was allocated to it previously, actually, the project came in much less, and we recently received a refund of nearly $150,000.
I'm talking about like over the last 10 years, all the different work that has gone in, the revetment repairs, the other things. I'm just wondering, like, do we get, I mean, if you don't have it off the top of your head, I'm
I
just
don't
kinda
have the number
curious,
off that.
but-
There has been a number of flood events that have caused a response, and we can certainly get back some research and numbers to you.
And I'm not looking for a down to the 100th of a cent, just
I can tell you last
really
fall's
rough.
event was roughly $850,000.
Yeah, and I'm just looking for what percentages the feds or the state typically pick up for us versus us.
We can give you that info.
Yeah, so through the mayor to Ms. Nowers, we'll get you that information. Typically, a lot of times it's done under a disaster declaration. So typically the state picks up the non-federal match for us. That's what happened last year. So the borough paid nothing. It was 25% state, 75% FEMA, if I remember correct. Or maybe, actually, that one, the state took 100%.
It was all state,
It has to go over a certain threshold for the feds to get involved.
which we
But
received
can
a
look back.
refund on fairly quickly.
Yeah, further reports?
I do, and
sir?
just one other thing, in your red folder, I have a graphic, an updated graphic. I showed you this last meeting. It just simply shows you the mill rate impact of the decisions that you have to make. Two of those decisions are tonight with the education and transportation bonds. I'll just give you one takeaway, and this assumes a best-case scenario where the charter schools are participating with 12.5% of their revenue in annual debt service payments. It basically, the takeaway is at current mill rate values, and this assumes no population growth, no assessed value growth, no new development. But if you were to look at that today and take a snapshot of those two decisions tonight, I included the amendments that have been pre-filed. So Mr. Hales that passed for roads, Mr. Gamble's two that he pre-filed for roads, and then the Mr. Fanoff, Ms. Nauer's for the boilers. I added those numbers in. Bottom line, roughly $500,000 increase if both of those pass tonight with amendments and the voters approve them. So I just wanted to provide that for context. That's in your red folder for your reference. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Attorney, report, sir?
No report tonight. Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. Assemblyperson Fanoff, sorry. Go ahead.
Can we follow up with Mr. Brown yet? One of the things that was brought up attention, today we posted, let me pull this up, the junk vehicle removal program. And I'd like to ask Manager Brown to follow up because it seems that whether the contractor who was awarded the bid to follow up, because some people attempted already to schedule that are a little further, but part of our award program was that it covers all the Matsu Borough, and that includes even the further ones away. But when they're starting to almost just because they don't want to go far, there's naming ridiculously high prices. I think that's not what the idea was behind it, because I mean the majority is still kind of come from Corey area, but we wanted that to extend. So I'd like you to follow up, make sure that that is not happening. And there was one thing, one of the condition was also those people who are not, who don't need a tow, they have their trailer, they're able to bring the vehicles, or they can also drop it off free of charge. So those two things I'd want you to follow up, because if for some reason that's the contract's not, who was awarded not following those rules, we would have to see what we need to do to address that or send out for rebid. So
Understood. We'll follow up.
Any other questions to the borough manager? And Mr. Attorney, you said you had no report, right? Madam Clerk, report.
The clerk's report with the upcoming meeting schedule, the election, pertinent election dates, and a quasi judicial reports in your red folder.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is citizens and other correspondence. Are there any comments on the citizens and other correspondence? Okay. The next item is IMs, Madam Clerk.
I am 24-135, informing the Assembly of the completed planning assistance for state's technical report for Talkeetna erosion assessment December 2023 by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. I am 24-148, informing the Assembly of the manager entering into an all-cash purchase agreement with a leasee to purchase by application for fee simple estate for borough-owned lands. I am 24-155, informing the Assembly of the submittal of 29 notice of interest forms for the hazard mitigation assistance grant programs. I am 24-156, informing the Assembly of the manager's signature on and submittal of the federal fiscal year 2024 emergency management performance grant application requesting $962.30 to cover 50% of the wages and benefits for emergency operations center staff.
Are there any comments on the IMs? Okay, hearing none. Now we come to the new section of our Assembly agenda. As you may remember, we had changed the agenda, so now we have, instead of persons to be heard, we have a new audience participation. And I would like to remind everybody that if you testify under this audience participation, you will not be allowed to testify on the next audience participation. So, anyway, anybody, and we have one person online, you said, okay. So Karen, you started us off tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Assembly and staff. My name's Karen Lewis, and I was very happy to be at the new Library Committee Advisory Council, and they did very well, I thought. They all agreed that the book Identical was indecent, every one of them. And from what our Attorney General said, you know, when he sent this out last November, he said that distribution of indecent material to minors is against the law. And if it's if possessed with the intent to distribute material, which is what libraries do, I don't understand why. Sorry. It's just, I'm tired of coming here and, I mean, you guys have done, I thank you for getting this committee and things together, but it's just really ridiculous to fight things that we all know are obscene. We all know these books are obscene. And yet we continue to fight, and we will continue to fight, but it would be nice if we could do it in one fell swoop, kind of like Utah did. And maybe that's the way we should go, is through the legislature. Utah, just a few weeks ago, removed their obscene books with the legislature, wrote it into law, and they removed these books. And maybe we should do that too, instead of going one by one by one by one and all kinds of stuff going. But the thing is, they shouldn't have been in the library to start with. Anybody with any kind of morality at all wouldn't put these books before children, or even adults for that matter. I mean, I wouldn't, but children, come on. So I'm just, really tired of fighting it, but I won't give up until it's done. So this board, it was in the paper, Amy wrote it. The board unanimously agreed that the book contains indecent material as defined by Alaska state law because it depicts certain sexual acts and appeals to prurient interest in sex of persons under 16 years of age. So I'm glad that we are moving ahead. To me, that's a win. You know, that's except they're just advisory. So, as in the school board, the advisory committee deemed quite a few books to be indecent, and yet the superintendent trainee gets to make the final decision, and he's stuck them all back on the shelves, most of them anyway. So we need a good superintendent. Thank you.
Jackie?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Assembly. My name is Jackie Goforth. I was there at the Library Citizens Advisory Committee where they voted 5-2 to remove this book. Only 2 people voted that it should stay in libraries in the adult section. And one of those was a retired librarian who's an American Library Associated member of the Friends of nonprofit. She said adult section. She said adult section. Please contrast this to January 18th. When we were discussing this exact same book before 2 librarians and 2 librarian board members, and all 4 of them said, it's fine for children. What's the difference? The difference is people are starting to see what's in these books and hidden, and they're starting to know what these librarians are willing to put in children's hands without their knowledge or consent. I have this book Identical at home. It's hidden in a closet in my house. The reason why is my granddaughter comes to stay with me, and these books really appeal to her. She loves Let's Talk About It. I had to really take that one. It's in the garage. And the reason why? They're meant to appeal to children. Do you know, I've challenged a book in Palmer and Wasilla, and I just got the answer back already, 3 days later, and she told me, oh, the publisher has now published this, and they put it in adults now, so we'll move the whole section out. So maybe publishers are starting to figure this out too. This is heinous, obscene material inside these books. My granddaughter, my son is her father. I don't want her reading a book that says he's got a lollipop. Do you understand how awful this would be? It scares the heck out of me to know that these children see these things. Now, we were out there picketing the nonprofit in Palmer, and I had a page from Let's Talk About It inside a flyer. I handed it to adults, and when they threw a fit at how awful it is, which it is, I asked them to please report me to the police. The police drove by 3 times. They did not arrest me. I understand why. I was not handing it to a minor, and I never would. But then they actually had the gall to go down to the Palmer Council and talk about how awful I am for handing this piece of paper out when with children around. And I want them to understand that this book has tons of those pieces of paper inside the covers in the library where children are around. Where on earth do these people not see the hypocrisy here? It's scary. It's like having a loaded gun. My granddaughter saw that on my back seat, and she said, ooh, Grandma, I can't tell you how fast I got around the car. I was terrified. These books are heinous. I now have 5 more challenges out in the books in the borough. Every single library now has a different book to look at because they're all over and they're scattered through and they're in the young adult section. Identical needs to be removed to the adult section at the bare minimum. And that's why there was a January 18th issue. Thank you so much for listening.
Rod?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Assembly. My name's Rod Hanson, Hanson. I'm with the North Lakes Community Council, and I'm here tonight to voice support for Ordinance 24070, which is in Section 8, the unfinished business, for your agenda tonight. In particular, that ordinance addresses 4 specific projects that are of particular interest for the folks in the North Lakes community area. I want to speak briefly about those 4 projects. The first one being the Angstrom North extension to Texall, which is a $6.1 million line item. And we support that connection primarily because it offers additional routing for people getting in and out of the North Lakes area. There is, though, an element of concern that what that could do is simply bring more people from the north of the area down through Angstrom, which we've all talked about as a real problem area. So we will continue to push for timely completion of that Angstrom to Trunk connection, which is, going through the planning process now. The second project on the list is Lakeview Road pavement preservation, and it's in there for $920,000. We believe that project should be scoped differently and renamed. It should not just be a pavement preservation project. It should rather be called the Lakeview Road Reconstruction Project. And the scope of work, we really think, should recognize that this road will continue to, it already sees significant traffic cutting through from Selden to Wasilla-Fishhook, and it's just going to get, I think, increased traffic once the Seward Meridian extension is completed. We've had residents along that road express great concern about traffic. What they're really hoping for is a redesign of the road such that there's some traffic calming measures, features that would recognize the residential nature of that neighborhood, and that any road design and work should intentionally keep traffic at slower speeds and provide for increased safety for intersections, pedestrian, and bicycle traffic. The borough should be really intentional about reaching out to residents now, early in the process, to define that scope rather than waiting until we get through preliminary engineering and then coming back for kind of a public review at that point. So that's our position on that project. Obviously, that road needs work. We support it being in the package for bond proposals, or for bonding, but we would suggest that the scope needs some redefinition. Green Forest Drive reconstruction is on the list for $6.2 million. strong support for that project. And if you look at the project description and purpose for that particular project, it's almost exactly what I just talked about for Lakeview. We're going to spend $6.2 million on green forest to get it right. Lakeview deserves that same kind of attention. And if you'll bear with me just briefly, I could talk about the Shaw School project. That project also needs some work on the scoping, particularly the intersection of Paradise to Wasilla Fishhook. I think there's some DOT work needs to be done there as well. And we do have mixed feelings among residents on that project. Strong support from parents who want to see, once that project is complete, we understand the plan is that Shaw will start busing people out of the kind of Shaw's Tri-Lakes area to that school. That's very much supported by the community. Other residents along Foxtrot object to the additional traffic that's going to go through there.
Can
And
you
so
wrap it
we
up,
hope
sir?
to see somebody address that scoping as well. So bottom line, we support the package going forward.
Okay, thank you. Dennis Glober? Dennis?
I apologize. I'm Denise Gober. I'm beneath him on the list. Good afternoon,
Oh, well,
Madam
there's a
Mayor.
Dennis and a Denise.
Yes.
Okay. Dennis is first, but okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Brown, and the assembly members. I am referencing the project on Burma Road, expanding that road system. Anyone that lives in the area knows that it is in need for sure of improvement. I've expressed concerns at our community council meetings that by widening that road, we're also going to increase the speed on that road. My other concern as a lifetime Alaskan and a homestead owner from my family back in the 50s, there's been no direct communication with any members that own property on both sides of that road. And I'm just interested to find out what the path and the plan is moving forward. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
But
Okay,
anyway,
all right.
hello, I'm Travis. I live in Palmer, and a few weeks ago, I was at city council meeting, and I talked about this company in Anchorage called Alaska Plastics Recovery. They take plastics that you can't normally recycle in the recycling center, such as fishing nets, clamshell containers, and industrial jugs and stuff like that. They normally have to be discarded in the landfill, but this company shreds the plastic and turns it into plastic lumber and also plastic bricks, which is lighter than concrete. And also with the wood, it doesn't rot and it's non-porous, which means it keeps water in wherever it is, and it won't degrade over time. So I would like to have a better way to recycle those kinds of materials that you can't put in the recycling center that's normally in a landfill, and use it for such purpose. Use it for that purpose, for making plastic lumber and such. You should look it up. Look it up online, because a lot of people from the city council actually looked up that company, and I thought it was a good idea. And another thing that I've thought of, but I couldn't mention it in the city council, is that I remember that whatever department it is in charge of having a harvest quota for lumber and other resources. I thought of an idea. Maybe we can harvest blueberries in places like Catcher's Pass and stuff like that, because blueberries are really hard to grow in the valley. So and there's a lot of them up there. So I was thinking maybe we should find a way to have some kind of harvest quota for blueberries so that they could be sold in the marketplace. And I also read later in the bulletin that you're talking about getting a machine for recycling asphalt. I have also another idea with that. Also get a machine for that can also convert used tires into, and you could put it in the asphalt, because I've noticed that you've talked about junk car removal. So, and these junk cars most likely have tires. Be a pretty good use with the tires and such. There's many uses for tires that I could spend all day on. But anyway, these are my ideas. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Travis. Is anyone else that would like to? Okay. Hi, John.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Assembly. I want to thank you for your service to our community. Thank you so much. I would like to speak in favor of ordinance 24070. I live in that area, and the congestion and the traffic is just getting worse every day. When the school bus is trying to make a turn into those areas or out of the areas, traffic just builds up for about a mile, I think. So I just want to speak in favor of that. There's a lot of lots available in that core area there on Ingstrom, and there's a lot of undeveloped land that's, I'm sure, going to be developed someday. And I think now's the time to act on it. I realize that not everybody in the valley likes to vote for spending more money on an area that they don't really live in or have anything to do with, like Talkeetna or whatever. But this is a real valley problem. And I'm sure the people that try to travel on Bogard Road and get stuck on traffic, you know, where it's backed up for about a mile, would appreciate some kind of relief getting east, west from the valley. So I just want to encourage everybody to support this ordinance. Thank you very much.
John, the clerk tells me you didn't state your name.
Oh,
I called you by name, but you didn't state it, so.
I thought
please.
that was sufficient, but John Miller, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Now, what do I need? We're good. Oh, we're good.
We're good.
Okay.
Fixed it.
Okay. Anyone else that would like to address the assembly? Yes, come on. You signed up for what, sir? Oh, sure. Yeah, if we come to it on the agenda, the clerk will bring us the sign up. But if you want to change and talk now, you can. Okay. Okay. Alrighty. Anyone else that would like to address the assembly? Okay, and we do have some people online. Go ahead online, please. Did we lose the online people? Okay, maybe they want to wait till the second participation then, okay? And did you say there were two people?
Hello.
on? Okay. The next person online, please, go ahead.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Awesome. Great. Hi, my name is Margaret Stern. That's Stern. Today I'm speaking on behalf of the Susitna River Coalition. We're a grassroots watershed organization based in the Susitna Valley. The Susitna River Coalition comments on behalf of more than 14,000 Alaskan individuals, groups, and businesses who support our work. And we support the communities and livelihoods and ecosystems that are sustained by the Susitna watershed, from the headwaters in the Alaska Range to the mouth and Cook Inlet. I'm speaking today on RS24-084. This should be pulled from the consent agenda. First of all, there's a pretty big a discrepancy within the resolution. The item states that it is a resolution supporting the West Susitna Access Road project with an eastern terminus in the Port McKenzie area, while the IM acknowledges that the project begins in Big Lake. The Assembly should be aware that the West Susitna Access Road no longer has anything to do with the Port McKenzie area, and the DOT road that then, of course, links to the larger ADA project now begins in Big Lake. So it's clear that the Mat-Su Borough Assembly is a little bit confused on what they're voting on, and the two items should be rewritten in congruence and to reflect the actual proposed project. And based on the last public meetings of the Assembly, the lack of inclusion of Port McKenzie also likely decreases the interest of the Borough Assembly in the project. In addition, this is a huge project, and your own outreach has demonstrated it to be unpopular. And because of that, as well as the DOT public meetings showing significant opposition, with those in support already having vested economic interest in the project, the Mat-Su Borough should not sneak these items into the agenda without conversation and without the capacity for the constituents to provide input. Thus, RS24-084 should be removed from the consent agenda, rewritten to reflect the actual proposed project, and moved to be open for the public hearing in next month's agenda. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate all of your work.
Thank you. Does the other person decided they're going to speak now? Or if they want to wait, that's fine. Okay. So one last chance for this first audience participation for anyone that's here that hasn't already spoken that would like to address the Assembly. Okay, seeing no one, then we'll go ahead and close this audience participation. Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 24075, an ordinance approving a supplemental appropriation of $35,000 from the Point McKenzie Special Service Area Fund 292 to the Point McKenzie Special Service Area Fiscal Year 2025 Operating Budget Fund 292 to adequately fund the annual road maintenance of roads within the service area. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press star 3.
Okay, staff report.
Mr. Adams.
It's like, it's my turn. Yeah. He's on to another, taking care of another project probably.
Madam Mayor, Member Assembly, Manager Brown. So Public Works Director Tom Adams, I'm here to introduce the ordinance approving a supplemental appropriation of $35,000 from the Point McKenzie Special Service Area to the Point McKenzie Special Service Area Fiscal Year 2025 Operating Budget Fund. Effectively, what happened here is, if you recall, in earlier this year, we approved road service area contract for RSA 17, which included this special service area, but we had not delineated the cost for the special service area separately. And after we had done so, after receiving the bids, recognized that the cost allocation to that special service area exceeded the operating budget that was approved with fiscal year 25. And so in order to make up for the deficit, we need to pull funds from the fund balance in order to allow for the road maintenance to occur for fiscal year 25.
Okay, questions of staff? Okay, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. We do not have a sign-up sheet. Okay, anyone in the audience that would like to testify on ordinance 24-075? Do we have anybody online that wants to testify? One last chance. Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and Assemblyperson Gamble.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance 24-075, and I have nothing to add to what Director Adams had to say.
Is there a discussion? Is there any objection? Okay, hearing no objection, the legislation passes. Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 24076, an ordinance approving an appropriation in the amount of $100,000 from the Greater Palmer Consolidated Fire Service Area Fund balance to purchase fire hose and related equipment with Company Resolution 2470, a resolution approving the scope of work and budget for a project to buy fire hose and related equipment for the Greater Palmer Consolidated Fire Service Area. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press star 3.
Staff report, sir.
Good evening, mayors, assembly, and staff. Ken Barkley, Director of Emergency Services. This is requesting for Greater Palmer to purchase fire hose. This is to replace any aging or damaged fire hose. Fire hose can only be in service for 10 years. Fire hose must be tested every year. There's a visual inspection for any damage, abrasions, or chemical, and then there's a pressure test that they go through every year. So this is to keep under NFPA standards to have the fire hose replaced, and this will help us replace what current apparatus we have, and then another apparatus that we have coming for Greater Palmer.
Okay, any questions of staff? Okay, all right, thank you, sir. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinance 24-076 and resolution 24-070. No sign-up sheet, okay. Anyone in the audience that would like to testify in this ordinance and this resolution? Okay, seeing do we have anybody online? We do not. One last chance. Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Assemblyperson Nowers.
I move to adopt ordinance 24-076 and resolution 24-070.
Okay. Discussion by the assembly? Is there any objection? Seeing and hearing no objection, then the legislation passes. Okay, Madam Clerk, for the next, way up. The next ordinance was pulled, and now we are to the second audience participation. And so let's see, Garland, Morrison. Garland Morrison?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Did you want to speak under audience participation, sir?
Yes, my name's Garland Morrison. I'm
Okay.
a lifelong Alaskan, born and raised in the state. Lived in South Central Alaska all my life. Been out in the Big Lake area for the last 15 years. I'm a board member on the RSA 21. This is in regards to the RS 24-075 to remove me from the Big Lake Road Service Area 21 Board of Supervisors. I've been in the road construction industry for the last 40 years. I think I have a skill set and knowledge that brings value to my participation in the board. I feel that this resolution to remove me is politically motivated, as I supported the current assemblyman's former opponent in the election. I would appreciate the opportunity to complete my term of service on the board, and that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And then Pat?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Assembly.
Evening.
I'm Pat Daniels from the Big Lake. The Big Lake Board debated the merits of this option and voted 4-1 to decline any action. But it made it clear that this is mandatory. Attendance is mandatory. The board believes the issue has been corrected. But under another example, the TAB board has not made quorum for 2 consecutive months or meetings, hamstringing the public or the Matt Subertle business. Garland has never sacrificed the board or the business of the RSA. He is the only person on the board with a full-time job and on call anywhere in the state. That in itself should provide him grace and dignity to complete his term without a public political lynching. I'm terribly sorry. Big Lake is so polluted politically. We have a beautiful community, politics aside. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. James Mills?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Assembly members, Manager Brown. Want to talk about the eastern terminus west for the West Sitton Access Project. I understand there's a resolution coming up. My name is Jim Mills. I'm the president of the Point McKenzie Community Council. At our August 5th Community Council General Meeting, the PMCC passed by unanimous vote a resolution in support of the West Susitna Access Project in support of the eastern terminus of the road being tied to the West Susitna Parkway. The scope of this project is a 22-mile road which would connect to the existing road system and open up the area for recreation, tourism, and potential future development. This scope of the project is not for an industrial access corridor to advance access to several mines. In fact, this road will not be built to the specifications necessary to transport large, heavy haul transport trucks. The proposed future route to the port, should industrial development take place in the future, which I believe DOT and public facilities is in favor of, would utilize perhaps 1 mile of the West Susitna Parkway and then turn south and could follow the rail bed easement to Port McKenzie. This would keep trucks off of Ashire and Point McKenzie roads altogether. Should future industrial development happen, the 22-mile section would have to be upgraded. It's likely that Ashire and Point McKenzie road to the port would also need to be upgraded, depending on the scale of any future development. The other option, of course, would be to load any onto a rail for final transport to the port. Whether or not future industrial development were to take place, accessing west of the Susitna River utilizing Point McKenzie roads, given the likely increase in traffic, is a bad idea. Point McKenzie Road is already in poor shape and is utilized by residents, employees, and visitors to both Goose Creek Correctional and Point McKenzie Correctional Farm, large LNG transport trucks, traffic to and from Port McKenzie, and seasonal hunters. All this traffic would then connect Goose Bay Road, which is already in the top 5 most dangerous roads in the state. Let's leave the eastern terminus of this project at the West Susitna Parkway, which is already DOT's preferred route. Thank you, and I'd like to, well, that's my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray Latchin?
Point of information. Can we speak to the resolution after it's on the agenda, or do you want it now?
The resolution is not under public hearing, so there will not be an opportunity to speak except at this time, sir.
Thank you. I'm Ray Latcham. My address is 27501 West Little Sioux Road, Point McKenzie. We purchased a failed farm in 1994, about 30 years ago. I've been before this body before when we got development rights to a part of that when we built an LNG plant that's still in operation today. My wife and I, Shannon, is here with me, and we're very pro-development, and there's no question about that. And we developed 2 of the 4 gas companies in the state, and we've developed out here at the Point McKenzie the gas plant that's there now. And so I rise to speak in favor of the road. I think everybody should, on this assembly is probably favoring the road and open up the land for the borough and the state. But I do want to speak in opposition to the resolution that supports the Ayrshire Road or anything that involves Point McKenzie Road and KGB Road. And to route all this recreational traffic down that way is just a bad idea. You heard Mr. Mills speak to this, and I was also at the Point McKenzie Community Council meeting that night when we passed a unanimous resolution in favor of the road, but in opposition to the Point McKenzie route. I believe the governor solidly supports this DOT project. He's told me so. He told me he expects the route, the terminus to be at West Susitna. And there are a lot of sound reasons for that, and we can't go into them in a 3-minute window. But DOT has done a lot of work on this project, and it's just a well-engineered option to be able to, come into that road from Houston, from the north, from Wasilla, the east, and from Port McKenzie to the south. So I see using the easement for the railroad to do just that. And I don't think that any modifications we have to do to the railroad easement to put a gravel road next to it is going to be a very light lift compared to what ADA is going to have to do if we do a mining project. I think it's unfortunate the state started this with ADA and it turned into a mining road. I think the DOT has done a good job in showing now, but late, that this is a recreational play and it makes sense on its own. I think it's a bad idea to support this resolution, and I think it's about it. How am I doing on time?
Yeah, yeah.
It's on the
20,
screen right in front of you.
Okay, well,
29.
that's just about it. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your service, and I hope you can either amend the resolution to say, hey, we're in support of the road as it's presented, or not pass the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience that would like to testify and give input to the assembly on any item, if it's on the agenda or not on the agenda? Okay, do we have anybody online, sir? We do not. So one last chance. Okay, I'll go ahead and close audience participation. And we are at the consent agenda. We already have one item that has been pulled. Madam Clerk, will you please read the consent agenda into the record?
You might want to ask if they want to pull anything else.
Did Assemblyperson Fauna?
If we want to discuss the 084, is that this an appropriate time to pull that one or no? The resolution?
Which number did you say, sir?
24084.
Okay, all righty.
He's pulling that.
Anyone else? Okay.
AM 24087, authorization to purchase fiscal year 2025 computer replacements from government computer sales under the National Association of State Procurement Officials Agreement in the amount of $225,249. AM 24088, awarded bid number 2516B to Dirt Works in the contract amount of $199,160 to install a new well pump and well line at Station 33. AM 2489, awarded bid number 254B to Neeser Construction in the contract amount of $3,565,694 to construct a new pathway and roadway improvement on Edgerton Parks Road and Mountain Trails Drive. AM 2490, award of proposal number 2533C to Fergo USA Land in this contract amount of $175,400 to provide pavement assessment and analysis services. AM 24091, awarded bid number 255B to AAA Valley Gravel in the contract amount of $4,219,893.33 to construct Point McKenzie Road, milepost 0 to 7 rehabilitation phase 1. AM 2493, authorizing the purchase of sodium chloride from Northern Gravel and Trucking in the amount of $244,125. AM 24094, authorizing the purchase of Rosenbauer pumper tender for Butte Fire Service Area in the amount of $940,750. AM 24095, authorizing the purchase of custom hazmat truck body from Tri-Van Truck Body in the amount of $186,912.72 for emergency services. AM 24096, approval to enter into an agreement with Cell Tower Solutions for a cell tower valuation project in the amount of $285,697.50. AM 2498, approval of contract extension for contract 2363P with Dowell to extend the final completion date to October 31st, 2024 for the Historical Preservation Plan Update Phase 2.
Deputy Mayor, would you please remove the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as read into the record by the clerk.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, then the consent agenda is approved. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 24075, a resolution removing Mr. Garland Morrison from the Big Lake Road Service Area Number 21 Board of Supervisors. It was pulled by Assemblymember Fonoff, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Assemblyperson Fauna, if you'll move it, please, and then we can discuss.
I move the resolution 24075.
Okay, do you want to speak to it, sir?
We heard from the testimonies and from, I believe, the person who's on here himself, and I just wanted to have a discussion about that and kind of what took place, why there was a request to do this, because it sounds like the RSA board voted a lot differently than what is proposing, and I would like to think that if the RSA board is supporting a certain with 4-1 votes or I think we should discuss it. And then if there was, seems like some of the points that was brought up about not having the quorum, I think it's reasonable to ask if there was attendance issue to give certain amount of time to improve the attendance. And then if that still doesn't change, then at that time, I think it'd be appropriate to, at that time, move forward with this kind of resolution.
Okay. Further discussion? Assemblyperson Campbell, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to reject that this was a politically motivated request to the Assembly. Mr. Garland Morrison's attendance record speaks for itself. It's pretty sad when the Assembly member has made more road service area board meetings than one of the board members themselves. And if you go back and if you look at any of the minutes from the board meetings where he has not attended, I don't see anywhere in there where it says that he was excused. I never heard the road service area primary ever say that Mr. Morrison had called in and was excused from the meetings. And I think, road service area 21 and Big Lake deserve to have board members that are active. This is a 5-member board. There's a lot going on in RSA 21. There's 3 people that have asked to fill a vacancy if one comes available with extensive road construction background for 2 of them. And then one of them sat on one of the biggest RSAs in Anchorage and has offered his services also. So I've got people waiting in the wings that want to participate and will show up for meetings. And like I said, I think Big Lake deserves, RSA 21 deserves to have a board with all of its members that are active. Thank you.
Further discussion? Yes, Assemblyperson Manero, go ahead.
This is a 3-year term that he's in the midst of.
Yeah, I believe, yes.
How long before his term is up?
I think in December 25, if I remember correctly. Do you know? 26. Oh, 26?
I think Nick just said.
Nick?
Madam Mayor, according to the IM, Assemblymember Bernier, he was reappointed on November 21st of 2023, which means his term would go till November of 2026. They're 3-year terms.
And his record, as far as missing meetings, I heard there
I
was,
think that's in the IM, that's in the information in your packet, if somebody maybe wants to pull that
and then the RSA board voted 4-1 in support of keeping him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Pardon? Did you want to speak while they're reading? No. Oh, okay. No. Okay. Okay. Okay, you Deputy Mayor, you found the answers?
Yep.
Okay, Assemblyperson McKee.
You know, I looked at this as well. Good people are hard to find, and that gentleman seems like he knows what he's talking about. I mean, his background is, to me, seems like a tremendous asset to any road service area. I think sometimes when you initially get into something, it's like when I first became an assembly member, I thought a couple of meetings a month I can do that, and then you find out there's like 10 because there's always something going on somewhere with something. And if this gentleman is working in a capacity where it calls for him to, for his livelihood to be away from some of these meetings, that's a tough burden to put on somebody. So I think the fact that this gentleman showed up tonight, first of all, that's kind of gutsy. I like that. He's defending himself. He's saying, I want to go forward with it. Maybe I have a problem with tardiness, as you probably have noticed. And sometimes if somebody would say to me, Ms. McKee, you really need to get here at 6 o'clock. You can bet your booty I would be here at 6 o'clock. I really would. Somebody just has to bring it to my attention. And if to keep this good man means that we just need to bring it to his attention, Maybe he's like me, maybe he just needs a little boost there, but I am very reluctant to take somebody who has basically volunteered for something, obviously knows what he's talking about, maybe just that little boost. So if that's what it requires, is he here? I don't think he's here. If anything, I would say, first of all, my initial foray into the borough assembly was something with the RSA at Big Lake, because seems to be a really contentious group. I'm not sure, I don't know any of those folks out there, but there's always something going on. I just think that maybe that's a pretty big hammer to drop there. And I'd like to give the guy to say, you know what, yeah, okay, I can do this. Or maybe call in, or if that was one of Mr. Gamble's objections, call in and let them know that you're not going to be there if that is not happening. I don't know. I'm just thinking second chances are a good idea. So that's where I stand.
Okay.
One other question. So when he missed any of these meetings, did it fail a quorum? Were they
I
not
don't know.
able to
What
meet?
Is this talk about that in the IM? No.
It does not.
No.
No. And most RSA's boards are 3 members, and they meet like 4 times a year. And Big Lake's a 5-member board, and there's several months, like in April, that they've got 2 meetings a month.
Yeah, it's up to the board how often they meet. I
Okay.
mean, they do have a minimum requirement, but then they also can meet, as they see fit. Uh-huh.
No, I agree with D.
Okay. Further discussion? Yes, Assemblyperson Gamble, go ahead.
So, no, it never did hinder a quorum being established, to answer that question. I would like to add, though, this is not like a recent thing that's just been happening for this year. This has been going on for over a year and a half. If you look at what was written in that ordinance, you'd see that the attendance problem is not recent. It's been going on for quite a while. Thank you.
Okay, Assemblyperson McKee?
Follow up.
Okay. Go ahead, Assemblyperson Barra.
So I don't know if anybody who was during those meetings, when they did vote that 4-1, what was the argument was it? And I would feel very kind of that if that board there voted, I would say overwhelmingly 4-1, it'd be kind of, I would not feel right to kind of objecting or like overriding their decision. I do think anytime you sign up for something, you don't know how much time commitment it has, and then you realize that's a lot more. Well, and this is the kind of setting you kind of get a notice, right? You approve or you're gone type of thing. And it sounds like it was well delivered. He wants to stay and wants to improve his attendance. And I don't know if he has to travel, maybe have option to phone in for the meetings, possibly. That might be an option. I don't know how they are ran normally. So I'd love to at least postpone this for 12 months or so.
Assemblyperson McKee, did you have another comment?
Yeah, 12 months seems like I just was going to pick up on the tail end of what Demetri said. 12 months seems like an awful long time to have to prove yourself. I'd go for maybe 6 and say, and the call-in, do they not have call-ins? I mean, I don't know about the RSAs, but do they not? Can you call in? You can't? How come? Well, maybe they ought to do that. I mean, if a guy's out there making a living and saying, I'd like to serve, he gets my vote. So if it is necessary, or if this body thinks it's necessary to say, hey, dude, you need to get there or call in or whatever, okay. But to boot him out, that's too much for me. So I don't know, 6 months, 4 months, and call in. Somebody needs to address that. You can't always be there.
Yeah, the clerk tells me that it would have to be some new legislation. Yeah. So, Assemblyperson Hale, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. As a guy who has a job that makes it impossible for me to physically attend a lot of the meetings, the call-in option is really very helpful. And I would suggest that perhaps the RSA board might come up with some type of call-in option. As it stands right now, I couldn't support this. Obviously, the person in question has on notice that the behavior of missing meetings is not acceptable. If the behavior continues, maybe we could take another look at this at another time or something. But the RSA board thinks that he should continue serving, and I do have a lot of sympathy for a guy whose job takes him out of town. So.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay, Madam Clerk, I guess we're ready to vote.
If I can get the members in the room to go ahead and vote. Assemblymember Yunt. Is he still on the line, Caleb? Assemblymember Yunt, we're voting on resolution 24075. Okay, I'm going to show that Assemblymember Yunt didn't vote, Madam Mayor.
Okay,
Madam Mayor, it has failed with Assemblymember Gamble in support.
okay.
Caleb, should we restart the system or do you think everything's okay?
Lonnie?
Yes.
Lonnie? So I apologize. I've had to hang up and call back in probably 4
Okay.
or 5 times tonight already. And
Okay.
so I only got bits and pieces of this last thing. I apologize. I vote no, I guess. I'm sorry. I've only got a small piece of it, so.
Okay. So
Madam-
do we need to have any?
If we could maybe take about a 10-minute break, and
Okay.
if we have any public members on the phone, we're going to go ahead and hang up the phone system and recall back, or please recall back in here in a little bit so we can make sure any of our technical issues are fixed.
Okay, so, what is it, 7:12? Should we come back at 7:30? Is that too long, or
I think 7:20 would work.
7:20? Okay, we'll be back at 7:20.
The conference has ended. You will now be disconnected. Goodbye. Welcome to the Synexus Conference Manager. Please enter. Joining conference.
Outgoing audio check. Incoming audio check.
Assemblymember Yunt, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, we got a couple minutes and then we will get going again.
I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting back to order.
Suit time.
Yeah. Okay, Madam Clerk, I think we have another resolution that was pulled from the
We
consent.
do, Madam Mayor, and that's Resolution 24084, a resolution supporting the West Susitna Access Road Project with an eastern terminus in the Point McKenzie area. It was pulled by Assemblymember Fauna.
Okay, Assemblyperson Fauna, would you move, please, to start discussion?
I move the resolution 24-084.
Okay, and you want to speak to it?
Well, I believe there were some valid concerns that were brought up. I almost wanted to pick Mr. Gamble's brains to explain if there's something adjustments that need to be made, if we don't have to be in a hurry. And during the break, I educated a little more myself because it is somewhat connected to the port, and I wanted to know how it benefits or does benefit. So if it would be appropriate, I think I would ask if you'd allow almost you hear pros and cons of each way, and if and based on that, we'll have a healthy discussion and decide what would be appropriate decision moving forward.
Any other? Assemblyperson Gamble, go ahead.
I'll go first. Mr. Manager, you can step in if I say something not correct. So in the last 2 weeks, I've gone to 4 community council meetings. I went into Anchorage and met with DOT, PF in their offices, and I attended the Wasilla Library meeting as well. So the Connect Fairview Community Council wanted the road to terminate at Ashire because whatever happens out there in the future, they want the port to be supported by it. The Point McKenzie Community Council does not want it to go to Ashire because they don't want the traffic going through the middle of their community. They're afraid these big mining trucks is going to destroy the road and, create havoc in their community. Big Lake, because the way it was explained as a recreational road, it will not handle heavy haul trucks initially. It may in the future, but that's not what this project is about. And that's what at Big Lake, when DOT came out and Point Mac came out, they explained it that way. So the community of Big Lake was like, well, if it's a recreational road, it goes to West Susitna Parkway, we really don't care. Meadow Lakes Community Council, they didn't care where it went, they just wanted it built. I think the general consensus, though, was if in the future, if it ever is upgraded to an industrial type haul road, that it goes somewhere like to the rail bed and then makes a right and goes to the port, that it does not go through any of the communities like Point McKenzie or Big Lake. So that's the feeling that I got from all the meetings that I attended in the last 2 weeks.
Further discussion, questions by Assemblyperson Nowers? Go ahead.
I'll just say that, you know, the state has long talked about the road to the mines, and it just makes sense to me to a certain extent that if people are thinking that's something for the port, that you build the first 22 miles out of the terminus that you think is, you know, potentially going to serve that. So I guess that part makes sense to me.
Okay. Further comments? Assemblyperson McKee, go ahead.
Yeah, the last time we discussed this whole West Susitna access and all that kind of thing, and we turned it over basically to the environmental folks and said, is it feasible? I don't know if they've, and it's still out there, so nothing there has changed. So I don't even know how to, has this particular area, this particular route been looked at by those folks? By the environmental folks as to how much it would affect? Like, is it a doable thing if they change it?
Sure.
I wanted to continue the conversation with potential Mr. Brown. And as it sits without this resolution, is the DOT moving straight? Because I just educating myself on it right now, and that's why I was wanting if we'd allow to have this discussion to see with the port director and see which way and which one also the time wise moves forward. That would be a important factor too, I believe. And if we have momentum, one project's already going, and then put in a resolution that would prevent that, I would feel very not comfortable putting that, because then we're not moving with one side of the project, and it prevents them from moving forward with what they have. So that's why I have the concerns with this resolution.
Go ahead, Chip.
All right, Madam Mayor, we will dive back into this. I won't go back to 1951, Tom, like you did in Talkeetna, but there is a history here, obviously. So a couple of weeks ago, DOT approached the mayor and I for a meeting. The project team on the West Sioux access came out and said, hey, here's what we're doing. We have known there has been changes, Ms. McKee. So the previous project road was a 100-mile road under the development of Ada, was really had an industrial focus. But if you'll recall back a few years when the borough went through the public engagement effort, one of the things we heard loud and clear was residents wanted recreational access. That was one of the things that came out of it. Actually, we heard that more than we heard they want the economic opportunities associated with jobs that might be created by these operations. And then the state, over that past couple of years, have put this into the STIP. So it's become a DOT project. So the first, I think one gentleman, I think he said 22 miles of the road is a DOT public road project. Ada's still doing their thing beyond milepost 22 out to the claims. That's a separate project. So this is the challenge. DOT's purpose and need for this road is centered around recreational access. So we can't directly connect it to Port McKenzie. We have to be careful with that, because the purpose and need is specifically for creating a public road for recreational access, because that's what DOT is doing. Now, will that evolve potentially where others might take use of that road and build onto it for other purposes? Absolutely. And I think it's a little disingenuous to not acknowledge that, right? So, but for what DOT is doing, their scope is very well defined. And so that's what you see in the resolution. So when we looked at this, DOT came out and they said, and I want to correct one of the callers earlier, we are not confused about how this resolution's written. The last time the assembly had a look at this, you had a 100-mile road coming off of Ayrshire Road in the Point McKenzie area. DOT came in and showed the mayor and I what they call their proposed action is to connect it to the West Susitna Parkway, and all that traffic that comes in off of that road from the West Sioux will go into downtown Big Lake. It's either going to go to Hollywood or it's going to go through the roundabout and off to the Parks Highway. I suppose it could go Burma Road, but we all know how Burma Road is. That's probably not the best option, but it will be a public road. So if there's truck traffic on it, it would be within public truck standards, right? Like weight limits and all that kind of stuff, but it could happen. And so when we saw that proposed alignment, I said, well, wait a minute, the assembly last saw this, it was different. We need to get a resolution in front of you so we can have this discussion and I can get a read on what you want to do. The public comment period for DOT expires the 23rd. Today's the 20th. So this was our only opportunity to get this in front of the body and go, do you support what's drafted here, right? Continued support for the road. I did put back in the eastern terminus in the Point McKenzie area because that's what you last saw. And I understand the concerns of the Point McKenzie community, but when I look at the transportation network, we don't have any solid plans for upgrading Burma Road. So if you're looking at an alternative that comes off the West Susitna Parkway and goes south to the port, it's going to be millions of dollars to upgrade that road to make that viable. Right now, DOT is upgrading KGB. I agree, it has been a public safety corridor, but that's why they're putting money in it to go into a divided 4-lane. They're going to carry that down to Settlers Bay Lodge. You just approved a $4.2 million contract for the first 3 miles of Point McKenzie Road, right? There are already investments being made in that road infrastructure. That is not true for Burma Road. It is not true for Big Lake Road today, right? So when we looked at that, we're like, we do want to preserve some connectivity to the port for future economic opportunities. I think that is a very real concern for the borough. I also think if you started to have truck traffic, and I'm not talking about industrial traffic, I'm talking about public truck traffic going through Big Lake, I think there's a challenge there with that. And I'm not saying that there wouldn't be traffic impacts in the Point McKenzie area. I'm not saying that wouldn't be the case. So we generalized the resolution to say an eastern terminus in the Point McKenzie area specifically. So if an engineer can figure out how to run it into the rail alignment to go south, go for it. I'm a skeptic. I think some of the other folks in the room that do this for a living are probably skeptical as well. You have a 200-foot right-of-way in the rail alignment where a rail embankment is constructed, bridges, crossings, embankment, wetlands. It's not just as simple as build a gravel road alongside the embankment and call it good. It's not going to be that simple. The terrain doesn't support that. But if an engineer can figure it out and they want to work on that, that's great. I don't know where the funding is to actually construct that. That's the other piece, right? You connect it into Ayrshire Road, you're in the public transportation system. You connect it into the West Susitna Parkway, you're into the public transportation system. If your plan to connect it doesn't include the follow-on construction needs to connect it to the rest of the network, I don't know where that's going to leave us. So that's where I have reservations about the rail alignment. That doesn't mean it can't be done. This resolution doesn't preclude that. It allows for that to occur if they can sort that out and figure it out. What we're saying is this resolution says it should probably be in the Point McKenzie area. It doesn't specify Ayrshire Road specifically. We dialed that out intentionally. We kept the focus on the improved recreational opportunities, one, because that's what we've heard in the past, and two, that supports DOT's purpose and need statement. But we do acknowledge there are other opportunities in the future for this. If you have a 22-mile road that creates access to this West Susitna area, it's kind of obvious that there's probably going to be more in the future. What that more will look like will be beyond DOT scope. So I know that's probably a little bit more than you wanted, but that's why we started where we started with this resolution, was because of where we left off the last time this came before this body.
Assemblyperson Hale?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So just my reading of this, and the sponsor can correct me if I'm wrong, is basically, since DOT has decided to build this road, we would like the connection point to be somewhere closer to the port than Big Lake. And that's basically my understanding of the resolution, and if that's correct, then I absolutely support that.
Assemblyperson McKee? Oh, I'm sorry.
And maybe this has already been said long since, but it's a while since we visited it. Who's doing the maintenance on this 22 miles? Who does that?
So through the mayor to Ms. McKee, it's a state road.
State run. Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Assemblyperson Fauna?
So, Mr. Brown, is this resolution supports the DOT moving forward as they are proposing, or is this slows it down and gives them a challenge to go a different direction? From a simple answer.
So through the mayor, I just want to read the last be it there further resolved, because what we're urging DOT to do is consider the benefits that we outline in the resolution and to support an alignment of the West Sioux Access Road with an eastern terminus in the Point McKenzie area. We don't specify that it has to be Ayrshire Road or any other specific connection. What we're saying, to Mr. Hale's point, is it should be further to the south, and there should be some consideration given to dropping all that traffic in downtown Big Lake. Because
Do you have a follow-up? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Because to Mr. Gamble's point earlier, when he's gone to these community council meetings, folks are going, oh, it's just recreational access, right? So they're thinking, oh, it's folks going out there to hunt and fish. Yes. But it seems pretty likely there might be other traffic on that road in the future. So we probably should give that a little bit of thought before we just run with DOT's proposed action. That's all this resolution is intended to do. So I can get a read from this body and staff, and we can put some comments together and get it to DOT in the next few days.
Assemblyperson Fauna, you have follow-up?
I mean, we need the revenue. We need to have, the port, our goal is to get it going. And I am still having a hard time understanding if this supports the future development and helps, connecting stuff, or it slows it down. If it slows things down, I can support it. If it moves things forward faster, then I'm support that. And I still don't seem to understand the clear answer, and that's why I had conversation with the port director. And I don't know if maybe Tom Adams, that department, might be able to explain it from a different perspective. Because if you said they're saying that 200 foot might be enough, and then in reality it's not, and then it's then postpones if it's the rail or the road and not both, then I don't want to be limited to only one option or not. So I would love to see the benefit of the recreational side, but also benefit of the financial and economic development side too. I just don't want to almost favor one over another. We live here to re-enjoy the vacation, but we also need to have resources. So I would like to almost clarify again, which way does this resolution take, or is there modification that can be done or amended to implement what I think this body wants to envision, I guess.
Go ahead, sir.
Through the mayor to Mr. Fonoff. So from what I've gleaned out from talking to the DOT project staff, they believe from a timeline perspective, the West Susitna Parkway connection is the fastest route to a completed project. Because their plan is to start construction on the road next year, and then the following year, build the bridges. I think that's pretty aggressive, which is great. Glad to see, them being aggressive. But my personal opinion as the borough manager, I'm sitting here and saying, I don't think that puts the port in the best position for economic activity that would be coming out of the West Susitna in the long term. So I'm not suggesting we want to slow it down, but at the same time, I want to get the alignment right and make sure it supports the port long term. And I'm not convinced that the West Susitna Parkway connection is the best way to do that.
Assemblyperson Gamble?
So there actually were 3 different routes that were proposed, correct, Mr. Manager? Okay, so
That's correct. There are multiple routes, and this has been studied for years.
right, and 2 of them terminate at Ayrshire. And one of them is a challenge because it goes to the state game refuge, which would require a full-blown EIS, workup, which would delay the project. The second one, which also terminates at Ayrshire, goes through public lands, not just, or private property, not just state and borough lands, which could also delay the construction of it. The West Susitna Parkway option is the only one that goes strictly across state and borough land, which would facilitate, it getting done quickly. And also, there's already a spur road that's been built off the end of West Susitna Parkway that goes all the way to the rail bed that the state could just tie into very easily. And I'm not promoting any of them. I'm just saying that there were options out there that they looked at, and the West Susitna Parkway, for what their scope is, what they want to accomplish, was their best option, and that's what they're promoting. And I actually was surprised that the Big Lake Community Council didn't say, hell no, we don't want this. They were like, yeah, just as long as you're not having mining trucks driving through the middle of Big Lake, we're all for it. But like I said, Point McKenzie Community Council said, we don't want this coming here because we don't want mining trucks driving through the middle of Point McKenzie either. So I think the resolution kind of is broad enough where it's going to let the state, develop how they want to do it, how they think it's going to happen the quickest. And we also talked about not just down the rail bed, but actually if they go to West Susitna Parkway, then building another spur that could come off of that later on too, down towards the port. It wouldn't actually have to go down the rail bed. So go ahead.
Go ahead, Chair.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Mr. Gamble. So through the mayor, that's what I'm concerned about. We build a project now in the STIP that creates a connection that requires a future construction project to make things work, because it's taken us a decade to get to this point. It seems to me that it's very likely that challenge is going to continue to be a thing if we don't get something done. And I think, like when I talk to DOT, yeah, Burma Road seems to be the logical north-south connection. That's a terrible idea in its current state. I'm not sure it's a good idea if you upgrade it. But upgrading it would cost millions of dollars. The borough doesn't have a plan for that. The state doesn't have a plan for that. So do we want to wait another 10 to 20 years and hope somebody comes up with a plan for that? I mean, that's where I think it's challenging, and that we really need to look at options that connect to existing public transportation infrastructure if you're going to make the best use of it in the shortest time frame. And to be clear to Mr. Fonoff, like, I do think if they change the alignment from West Susitna, it may extend the project timeline. That very well may happen for the reasons Mr. Gamble stated, that it's probably going to require different environmental approvals than it does today based on the lands it crosses and the terrain. But you got to look at it and go, if we're going to spend, say, $50 million on a road, what do you want that alignment to look like? Do you want to go long game, or do you want to build next year? I mean, that's exactly what DOT is struggling with, right? Because they're looking at this going, we've got direction to go and go now. And so they're trying to go now. And we're looking at it and going, yeah, but we have this other interest known as Port McKenzie that's we think is important long-term for the borough as well. How do we balance those? And I think that's what you're looking at tonight.
Okay, further discussion.
When you
Assemblyperson
said
Paul.
that would potentially slow down, or we're talking, so if they have an idea of completing in 2 years, this would slow down and then ask for a completely different route. Now we're setting this project additional 5 years back. If that's the case, then I can't support that. I would much rather them continue doing, and then we also work if there's a momentum as it's going. But if it slows down, by a year, maximum of 2, then I guess that's would be acceptable thing, because we don't want to just completely. And second question to that part is the resolution. Do they take this as a consideration, or it's a must, or it's just or more of our opinion on this? To what extent does this resolution actually they consider or follow?
So through the mayor to Mr. Fonoff, one, I can't guarantee you how long it would delay it. Environmental approvals hit roadblocks all the time. It would clearly make it more difficult to get to a buildable project. Whether that's a year, 2 years, 3 years, I'm not sure. And DOT could speak to that. As far as the weight of this resolution, I think it will be heavily considered. You're the local governing body. They're going to listen to that because you're elected officials that represent a community. And so I think that it will carry weight. The way it's written, obviously DOT's got to weigh that out and figure out what's the best way to move forward. Ultimately, it's their call because it's a state project. But I think what the assembly has to say about this will carry a great deal of weight.
Okay, thank you so much. And
May I?
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, Assemblyperson McKee?
Oh,
Yeah, I think,
Oh, I'm sorry, was that Rob online?
it's okay. Let Ms. McKee go first, then I'll talk.
okay, we've been talking about Point McKenzie and making something happen there for like 30 years. The very first meeting that I had when I came on the assembly was about Port McKenzie and what a valuable piece of land and all that. And we finally got the idea that, gee whiz, maybe we can move forward with this, maybe not the way it was originally planned, but to make it actually work as an industrial area, that kind of thing. I see progress here, and I like that. I mean, it's time, and you can't be certain of how long it's going to take. But if you close this door now, I think it's taken an awful lot to open that door and make and give any benefit to Port McKenzie. So I think if this opportunity is here now, I just think we ought to roll with that.
Assemblyperson, you want to go ahead?
Yep, and Mike, step in any point, please, and correct me if I'm wrong. So what I'm hearing is we're trying to take into consideration economic development and progress down at Port McKenzie, but we're not quite sure we can squeeze a road and a rail in. It sounds like more than likely it'd be very, very difficult into the same 200-foot easement. Big Lake asked for this, pending that it's, recreational and whatnot, and Big Lake is the faster path forward, and based on their community council asking for it, I'd be very reluctant at this point, unless somebody could guarantee me that we could squeeze a rail and a road in out to Point Mac area. I'd be reluctant to go away from Big Lake, because we run the risk of, if we stick a road in that, and Mike, step in, please, correct me if I'm wrong, but if part of that alignment winds up where the road is where the future rail could be, we might be shooting ourselves in the foot for the rail. And so, is that the case, Mike?
Go ahead, sir.
So, through the mayor, I remember reservations from the Big Lake community from years ago when this was being talked about and the traffic that it would generate to the Big Lake area. Again, the purpose and need for this is a recreational road, public recreational road. I think it's pretty obvious there would be development beyond the Big Sioux. And it likely will involve, if there's development, natural resource development. How much traffic that might generate, how much that might drive business at Port McKenzie is unknown. But I think it's obvious that would
If and when that comes. Yeah. And if and when that time comes, then maybe we look, it very well may be. I mean, if I remember when there was one red light in Wasilla. I'm not making that up. I know. So we had one red light when I was a kid, and now look at it. So I could honestly see a path eventually to Port McKenzie into Big Lake. And so I would be very reluctant right now, for me personally, to support anything that would slow this process down and that would run the risk of eventually, potentially, getting in the way of a rail. So as it is right now, I don't think I could support the resolution. But I would be open to, if somebody wants to, offer a friendly amendment and postpone this for 2 weeks. It sounds like we all have some unanswered questions. So as it is right now, I'm a no vote. But if somebody wants to postpone for 2 weeks, then it sounds like we could all get up to snuff a little bit better on it. So thank you.
So if I may, Madam Mayor's given me the nod. So through the mayor to Mr. Young, you can simply amend the resolution that's here tonight. Our starting point was where we left you the last time we had this conversation. A couple of friendly amendments on one of the whereases and two of the be it further resolved would allow it to stand the way DOT has it in their proposed action. It would be it therefore, or now therefore be it resolved that Mat-Su Borough supports the West Sioux Access Project. I mean, you don't have to say a lot more than that. We elaborated further. So you could amend it and pass it. If you don't do anything tonight, we will miss the public comment period. I don't think that's the end of the world, but we're talking about keeping a project on schedule. Part of that is hitting the marks that they've got to hit to move this to the next phase. And so this was our only opportunity to do this. We can certainly postpone it and take that comment back later, and I'm sure the team would acknowledge it, but that's why we tried to get it to you today, is because we're trying to keep it within that window that they've put out there for public comment. And so I think the resolution can still pass if you want to be more general and not change the alignment. An amendment or two would adjust that and allow you to approve a resolution that still shows the assembly supportive of the project, so we can move forward on this tonight.
Deputy
I would
Mayor
like to offer that friendly amendment.
Okay, we need to know what the clerk is telling me, we need to know what the friendly amendment is.
There's no such thing as
And
The one that Mike just explained that supports DOT's current plan.
it's an
I mean, Mike said it better than I'm going to be able to.
Deputy Mayor, did you have a comment while they're working on this?
I think we're all in favor of the West Susitna access, for the most part. And we all want to, for the most part, want to see it started. But we definitely want to see Point McKenzie involved in it and access to there. And if we have some type of amendment that clarifies that a little bit better than what we've already said here, I mean, an eastern terminus of Point McKenzie area, I mean, that's pretty
Broad,
much there, isn't it?
yeah. Assemblyperson Hale, did you have a comment?
No, thank you.
Okay. Assemblyperson McKee?
I'd like to say something just really briefly. When we say that the Assembly is in favor of the West Susitna Access Project, I want to go back to what I said when this whole thing first came up. I want to see how it lays. I want to see how it affects the environment, how it affects, we don't know that. So for me to say tonight, I'm in favor of the West Susitna Access Project, I can't say that because I don't have enough information. I think when they come through with the environmental statements, then I can move forward with it. But right now, I don't even like to assume that at least this part of this body is not ready to say, I'm for it. But I'm for this resolution because I think that it keeps the door open. There's been so many doors slammed on Fort McKenzie over the years that here's another one. That one gives us a path. So I'm for the resolution.
Assemblyperson Gamble?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to be clear that I'm not promoting any of the routes. I am promoting the port. I think, and I've said this many times, that it is the diamond in the rough for the Matsu Borough. Only one of them will require a full-blown EIS, and that's the one that runs through the State Game Refuge. The challenge with the second route that ends at Ashire is that it goes across public land, so who knows how long it would take to deal with the people that own that land. The only one that's pure is the one that goes across state and borough land that ends at West Lakes Boulevard. That's all I'm saying. I'm not promoting any of them. I am promoting the port. That's what I want to see. And I think by sending a message that we're open for business and we want to see development happen is going to attract more business to the port. Thank you.
Assemblyperson Paula?
How, to follow up on the amendment, what Mr. Brown proposed, how do I support, or how do I propose an amendment that supports the project as the DOT has proposed? By doing that, we're not slowing it years back. And I am, to Ms. McKee's point, that one that they're proposing, if they're ready to start, I'm sure they did all of their environmental studies and everything like that. So I'm very confident that that was completed, because they wouldn't be ready to complete this project in 2 years. But if we're trying to dictate them to go to a different direction, I think then we're potentially closing a door, because what if they try to go that direction and then the environmental whatever study says no, go that way, then we kind of lost this one and we didn't get the other one. So I'd like to amend it to support as they proposed when they were in the still supported, but to as they proposed it when they were in the meeting with you guys, from my understanding.
To be perfectly clear, we do not have an amendment on the floor.
Mike's got a recommendation,
Yeah.
it looks like.
Okay.
Through the mayor. My recommendation is the resolution as written. I've made it clear. Now I will move on. If there were to be an amendment, to leave it at the proposed action as is, as DOT proposed it to West Susitna Parkway today, I would probably remove the sixth whereas that's on page 1, at the very bottom. And I would probably just remove the last two, be it therefore resolved at the end. That's the simplest way to do it. It's not exactly how I would write it if I were writing it from scratch, but I think it will get us there. And that will give staff the latitude to make comments that maybe are more administrative in nature and outside the scope of this, but it gives us clear direction from the assembly so that we know we're not putting something on the public comment record for the borough that doesn't align with your expectations. So the sixth whereas, bottom, page 1, the last two, be it therefore resolves. If you just remove those, I think the resolution can run as is, and basically it would say we support the project, and it makes no mention of a eastern terminus in the Point McKenzie area.
You might want to change the title too.
There would need to be an amendment of the title. You're right. Yeah, and we could
So-
just say supporting the West Susitna Access Road project, period.
I would be supporting that amendment.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I agree with Assemblyperson Gamble regarding where the Big Lake Community Council is on this, because the Big Lake area constantly is upset about the Big Lake Road. I mean, the representatives and the senator from that area get bad mouthed on social media all the time because it's potholes and patching and all of that. So if it comes down through Big Lake, it's gonna have to that traffic's gonna have to go down that road to be able to get to the parks, to get home to Wasilla or wherever. And so, yeah. I have problems with changing it. I think the resolution is where we want to go. That's where I'm at. Okay. So, Assemblyperson Gamble.
Just one last comment. They also said that we would have another opportunity. There would be another public hearing before they actually start construction, another chance for us to look at what they're proposing. So I think we'll have another chance to weigh in before they actually start work on it.
Yeah, I don't know. This is open until the 23rd. I don't know, when the next time will be. But Assemblyperson Hale, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Is the amendment on the floor?
We do not have a motion for the amendment.
Can we call the question?
You can call the question. Okay, so the question now is the question, whether we stop debate or not.
Is there any objection?
Is there any objection?
There's objection.
Okay.
If I can get the members in the room to go ahead and vote on calling for the question. Assemblymember Yunt,
Yes.
Madam Mayor, it passed with Assemblymember Fonoff and Nowers opposed. If I can get this really quick.
Okay.
Now
That
we
was
have
to call the question, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Now we are on the main motion. We have to go directly to the main motion, Madam Mayor.
Okay. The main motion is to adopt a resolution 24-084. No,
Is
I
there any
object.
discussion?
I don't think we have discussion. Do
We
we have?
cannot
No, we
have
cannot
discussion.
discuss now.
Amendment?
No, no. 'cause-
I object.
So we need to vote.
Okay, so everybody needs to vote.
If I can get the members in the room to go ahead and vote on the resolution, please. Assemblymember Yunt,
No.
Madam Mayor, it passed with Assemblymember Yunt and Fonoff opposed.
Okay. So the next item on our agenda is, I'll give the clerk a minute. I think unfinished business, is that where we are, ma'am?
We are, Madam Mayor. We're on
Okay.
unfinished business, ordinance 24066, an ordinance amending MSB Title 24 Animal Care and Regulation.
Okay, so we have the main motion on the floor. We have discussion. I think there was some amendments. Were there some proposed amendments?
Assemblymember Campbell.
Assemblyperson Gamble, you have a proposed amendment or amendments. Yeah, this is the MSB Title 24 Animal Care and Regulation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to amend ordinance 24-066 as follows, and I'll let the clerk read it for me.
Okay, okay.
Madam Mayor, everybody in the room has a copy of it. The assembly members have a copy of it. It's online in the back of the room, should anybody want to look at it. MSB 2410-10A, add the word optional, delete the word required, delete the words no person shall own any dog or cat over the age of 6 months without, and then add words, it is optional to licensing. Section C, add the word required, delete the words, the borough shall not license a dog or eat, or I was going to say eat, or cat, unless the dog or cat has been, and add the words within the borough, all dogs and cats over the age of 6 months must be, and then under F, delete subsection A and insert subsection C, MSB 24-2020. Where is that? I don't even see. Oh, there we go. At the end of the first sentence, add the subsection C, MSB 24-1020, by deleting the words animal licensing and adding the words under this title, MSB 24-1030, by deleting the words dog or cat owner and deleting the words MSB 24-1010B, MSB 24-1050A, by striking the word shall, inserting the word may, and adding the word upon request by the owner. Subsection B, by striking the word shall and adding the word should. Subsection C, by striking the word shall and adding the word should, and striking the words as long as rabies vaccinations are maintained as current. If rabies vaccinations lapse, lifetime licensing is forfeited and the animal must be relicensed. In subsection D, by striking the word if, adding the capital T, adding the word should. MSB 24-1070, by adding the word optional in 4 separate places, in A1, and then in A2, adding the word optional. Does not look like there's any changes in A3. MSB 24-1090, A, by adding the word optional and deleting the word requirements, and then deleting the words, this subsection does not allow a 30-day grace period for compliance with licensing requirements for dog and cat owners within the borough. This subsection is an exemption only for dogs and cats kept by licensed kennel or cattery or temporarily within the borough boundaries of the borough. And subsection B, by deleting 24-1010, 24-10-120, by adding the word optionally, 24-1550A, by striking the words in addition to licensing provisions set forth in MSB 24-10, making the N capitalized, 24-2020, by adding the word optional, 24-2630A1, by deleting the words licensing requirements set forth in MSB 24-10, MSB 24-2640C, by adding the word and deleting the words and licensing, and deleting the words in addition, all dogs and cats shall be licensed in accordance with the MSB 24-1010, and MSB 24-4050, by deleting the entire row for fines related to MSB 24-1010A, failure to register dog or cat, and delete sections 7 and 9 of the ordinance.
Okay, and the motion, that's amendment number 1, and it has been moved, right? So it's discussion now just on the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Yes, Assemblyperson Nowers.
I do. I support this amendment. I think the goal in the borough is to have a way to identify dogs and cats and their owners so that they can get reunited quickly, or if there's a problem with them. And we have microchips now. And so my only question is maybe to staff about we're not going to have this licensing requirement anymore. Can we do things to encourage microchipping, offer clinics, other ways so that, and encourage people to know that, hey, if your pet ever gets lost, on a trail or wanders off your property, and that's a whole nother issue, but this is a way to be able to quickly recover your pet, because if they show up at animal control with no identification, it's a longer process to get them back. They might not go back. So just a question, can we, in addition to doing this, is there things we can do to encourage people to get their pets microchipped so that, that if they lose them, they're going to get back to their owners? And so maybe that's a question for staff and how we would go about that.
Okay. So is that germane to the amendment, okay, or? Okay, okay, is there any objection to asking staff then to come, or Mike, did you want to answer that? Okay. Okay.
All right, good evening, Madam Mayor, Assembly members, borough staff, and community members. Chris Loskar, Animal Care Director. Licensing in general is a very low compliance requirement. We issue approximately 1,500 licenses of all types each year. The majority of those are through adoptions and the returns of stray animals to owners. We estimate that less than 1% of the licenses we issue are spontaneously requested individual pet licenses. We don't necessarily disagree with making this optional, but we would like to see some language in there supporting microchipping, which is a far more beneficial process. It does reunite animals faster with their owners, and it also is a definitive proof of ownership. That's something that we struggle with frequently when stray animals come in and their owners don't have any way to prove that to us. So our proposal would be to make the language say that it is optional to license an individual dog or cat if the animal is microchipped and registered to that owner, and any other appropriate changes that would follow that in code.
I don't know that that's answering the question that's the Assembly Person Nowers asked, because we're not to the point, I don't think, where we can accept another amendment, Madam Clerk, right?
I think what was just suggested would take this is a 3-page amendment. What was just suggested, I think, is going to take a lot of time for law and me to look at for the appropriate language.
For an additional amendment, like what?
Yeah, it would take some time. Yes.
What's it called? Assembly Person
Can I
Nowers.
just ask, maybe to clarify my question is, if we do adopt this as it is, are you able to do, offer microchipping to the public and encourage that? So even if we don't have licenses, we're offering a carrot to get people to microchip. Does that clarify? I'm just asking if you're able to, do you currently microchip animals? Would you be able to offer it along with spay and neuter clinics? Like, are there ways that within your current mode of operation and capacity that you could help microchip animals? Because it's to me, it's a little bit the same as licensing.
So through the mayor, we currently offer microchipping in conjunction with licensing, and we offer that at a reduced cost. So it's $30 to have your pet licensed and microchipped. We have worked that into our past vaccination clinics. So if your pet is licensed, you are able to get low-cost vaccinations through us. So yes, we can work it into those clinics that we run for sure.
Okay. Let's see.
I have a question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So if somebody loses their dog or cat or whatever, and it winds up down in our shelter, I've never had this happen. So then they got to come and pick it up. Do they get charged for that?
So through the mayor, yes, they do.
How much, sir?
I need to double check what the fee is. The fee is variable depending on how long the animal is there.
So maybe going along the lines of what Mrs. Nowers is hoping to see, which I think is a great idea, by the way. I would love it if everybody's dog or cat was microchipped. Maybe we amend it so that if that happens, we staff has the ability to waive that as long as they'll, so, okay, your fine is say $50. I know you don't know that answer, so I'm making up an example from left hip here, but, or we'll waive that fine so long as you get your dog or cat microchipped right here, right now, and then we'll waive it. And then, you know, that would be a way, you know, most people would do that. They would do that. I just wanted to offer that.
Go ahead. One. Do you want to answer his question?
What was the actual question?
Will you
Well, the
restate?
question was, how much is the fine? But you didn't know.
Right.
And what I was going to offer was to make microchipping in lieu of a fine the option for residents.
So is that something the staff has discussed regarding doing that, sir?
So through the mayor to Mr. Yunt, part of the reason it's variable, Mr. Yunt, is there's a boarding charge. If the animal's there for a couple of weeks, that's going to be more than if the dog, let's say a dog's there a day. So that's where it becomes variable in terms of returning, because we're charging them for the cost of boarding an animal, basically. That's not our property. So that's where it's always going to be a variable depending on the length of stay. Is that fair? Now, as far as
That is
the
fair.
question,
And go ahead.
no, please go ahead.
I was just going to say what I'd like to do is pass this through tonight and then have Ms. Nauer, since it was a great idea, or anybody else possibly bring back, once we know the answers to what it is if your dog is, say, there only for an hour, right? We didn't board the dog. We didn't take care of it. But it got picked up and brought over. What is that, $50, $75? Okay, it's your first time. We didn't board the dog. We are willing to waive that as long as you agree to get your dog microchipped. I think most people would do that. And then that would solve all of the problems here. And so as it sits right now, I'd like to vote on the one, but I do hope that someone brings that back. And if not, I will, so thank you.
Okay. Yeah, go
Through
ahead.
the mayor, Mr. Young, we can bring a resolution forward that amends the schedule of rates and fees that talks about some of the things that you've discussed. I don't think we're going to do that here tonight, but we can certainly take a look at what that would look like. And as far as the question around encouraging it, certainly we could offer microchipping low cost, but it's just a resource issue, right? Like how much staff do you have and how much time can you commit to it? That's my primary concern, because I'm pretty sure the idea is, well, let's do that, but let's not add the staff that are needed to do that, right? So that's where it becomes a challenge. Like we already have plenty of workload down there, and I don't think the intent is to add staff. So if that's not what we're doing, I don't know that we could commit to offering wide scale, low cost microchipping. We already do it as part of, the folks can come in and request it, I suppose. And certainly if it's borough property and we're adopting out, we'll do it. But just for the public at large, like to get like this large scale microchipping going, I don't know that our shelters has the capacity to support that as it's resourced today.
Assemblyperson, one of the concerns regarding that is it's pretty quickly to put the microchip in, but then the data into the computer so that 6 months from that time that dog or animal's picked up, that there is somebody, and that, that's one of the big resource challenges that would be there. So, so do you have further, Assemblyperson Yonder? I'll go to some people here.
No, understood. It's something we can discuss later when we have more facts and we can look at that stuff. I'm glad Stephanie brought it up. I think it's a good idea to encourage people to get their animals microchipped, and we'll get to that at a later date. For now, we'll just stick to this. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So the clerk has you down. Were you trying to get my attention?
Well, I guess just, Mike, you were saying it, or no, I guess you were saying it's pretty quick kind of a thing. How long does it take to microchip, and how long does it take to put the data in? Because if you look at the return on that investment, it seems to me, if it doesn't cost an arm and a leg, that would be best to just offer those to the public and at a rate that people will say, oh yeah, let me have 4 of those?
So through the mayor, the microchip process is very quick. I mean, it takes a few minutes to insert, and when we purchase the chips, they're registered to us. And then once the animal is returned or adopted, it's up to the owner to update that registration from there. So that's how that works.
Quite frankly, this is such a huge amendment that we're considering. I really haven't been able to make heads or tails of it. Maybe everybody else has, but if the object here is to do away basically with requiring people to register their animals, and encourage them to microchip, is that what we're doing here?
Through the mayor, that was my goal.
Okay. That seems like a long way around to do. Could we fix this language so that it just basically says that? No? Yeah?
No, I don't, because it's so many code changes. Yeah, it's so many. Go ahead, sir.
And through the mayor to Ms. McKee, this is an amendment by assembly members. So staff are not going to amend an assembly member's amendment, right? This is an amendment from assembly members.
Got it.
Right? So we got to walk that line. Like, our job is not to come up here and tell you how you should rewrite your legislation.
I understand the process, I do. But when all is said and done, are we going to accomplish what you want by, Ms. Nowers, by doing what?
Assembly person hours.
I think what we're doing tonight is removing the licensing requirement,
that's good.
except for catteries or
Yes.
kennels,
Yeah.
and also dogs that are classified. And what I'd like to do is encourage microchipping, but I agree, we could come back and do that.
Yeah,
we
we
can
could.
pass this, and then we can have a better discussion involving
Got it.
animal control to figure out the best way to do that and bring it back.
Good on you. Okay, I see. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor, did you still have comments?
I had a couple of things. One for the sponsor. What was your inspiration on this amendment?
Assemblymember Yacht and I were discussing one day about how many thousands and thousands of borough residents are out of compliance with this code and are never going to comply. It's not enforced, so why have it on the books?
Okay. Now, registration's an annual thing, right, with the pets?
Through the mayor, we offer 3-year licenses and we offer lifetime licenses, and they differ for altered and unaltered animals.
And how much is a lifetime license?
Give me 1 second again. So the lifetime license for an altered animal is $30, and for an unaltered, it is $60.
Okay. What I was basically thinking in my mind was, like, if you wanted to get rid of the licensing, just make it, hey, trade it out for a microchip. One-time microchip. I know, like, through AKC Reunite, it's $19.50. On the microchips, you get a box of 25. As soon as those 25 are registered to people, you get another box of 25 for free. And it, like you said, it only takes a couple of minutes to insert a microchip.
Right, but then the data input into
No,
the
the data
computer
they-
is another thing. Because otherwise, if you just microchip him and send the dog on his way, when you pick him up in 6 months, you're not gonna know who he belongs to. So, I mean, there's a 2 or 3 step process there.
When you microchip them, you'd have to take the 1950 or whatever home again or whatever the other registrations for the microchip are at that point.
But you have to put that data into some kind of central location, so when that dog or cat
it
is
right
picked
online.
up, that that they are able then to reach out to the owner.
I understand that.
Okay.
It's like on AKC Reunite, if you use the actual paper form, it's 24 something. And if you do it online, it's 1950. So whoever's, I mean, literally you're just putting an address and phone number in. Yep.
But it's putting it into our system.
No,
Is
you
that
put
it?
it into the microchip system. So that way, whoever, if that dog goes to Florida and he gets scanned, it's gonna have an address of Palmer, Alaska or something, you know?
Okay. And does that system interface with our system?
Yes, all those
Yeah,
nationwide.
it should. Okay, great. Good, good, good. Okay, further discussion on the amendment. We ready to vote? No, Assemblyperson Gamble?
Hold on. Assemblymember Yant. Got a question for the attorney. Is our animal care facility considered a kennel? Because it keeps more than 5 dogs at a time in there, right? Just a question.
I've never been asked that question before. I'd have to really stop and look at it because I don't know.
And the reason why I ask is I don't think the intent is to change anything that animal care is doing right now. It's for all the people out there that don't interact with animal care to not force them or to basically be criminals for not following a code that hardly anybody's following. And also about the chipping, whenever you go into a veterinary clinic to have your dog looked at or, you know, whatever's going on, they offer chipping there also. And I didn't know that it was required before. I just did it because I thought a responsible pet owner, and I think most responsible pet owners do have their animals chipped. I never had mine licensed or registered before, but I did chip them. Thank you.
Assemblyperson Yount, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I'll speak briefly to the reason that this came about. I got called by someone in my district that was pretty upset about it. They'd moved out of the city into the borough, and they were appalled that we had this on the books. And I honestly couldn't tell them that it was or wasn't. I own 2 dogs. I've not registered them. I believe my wife has got them both microchipped, but I'll have to ask her. I'll confirm. So either way, I didn't know that you had to do that in the borough. And so, well, let me call and make it, find out. And then I got off the phone after I found out you did, and I'm like, this seems to me like we got to have 20 to 30,000 criminals in the Matsu borough. There's tens of thousands of people out here with pets that I guarantee you don't have their animals registered. So I got with our staff there and got a number of how many are registered, and it confirmed my gut feeling. Hardly none are registered in the entire borough unless you adopted them at the shelter, which my son just did. And, he got a great dog down there, and she's, of course, registered. But for the most part, most people aren't doing it. So I called Bill just to kind of get a common sense gut feeling for it. I wanted someone else's opinion on it, and sure enough, we got a good laugh out of the fact that we probably have 10, 20, 30,000 criminals in the Matsu borough. So here's where I'm at with it. I'm not a big fan of non-American rules anyways, anti-freedom, and this seems about as anti-freedom to me as it gets. If somebody wants to have a dog or a cat not registered, I don't think they should have to, for one. And for two, if we're going to have it on the books, then actually enforce it. And we don't. And we never have, and we never will, because we would go bankrupt as a community if we had to hire enough code enforcement officers to enforce this. So if we're not going to enforce it, get rid of it. And that's all it is. Now, Mr. Bernier and Ms. Nauer said some great ideas that if they want to bring back in the future to encourage microchipping, I would love to hear that. But right now, this is as simple as it gets. It's a terrible rule on the books that we don't enforce, and I think it needs to go away. So that's it.
Assemblyperson Hale.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to call a question on the amendment, please.
Okay. So the question has been called. Any objection? No objection, then we're ready to vote on the amendment.
Is there any objection to the primary amendment?
Any objection to the primary amendment? Your light is on, sir, but you're okay? Okay. Okay. So no objection to the primary amendment. Now we have before us ordinance 24-066 as amended. You ready to vote? Any objection? Hearing none, then ordinance 24-066 as amended has been adopted.
Ordinance 2470, an ordinance relating to the construction, additions, improvements, betterment, repair, reconstruction, or acquisition of public roads and pathways and facilities related thereto in the Matanuska-Susitna Borough, together with all necessary equipment and transportation facilities, including improving school access and the acquisition of lands or rights in lands in connection therewith, and a debt of the borough, authorizing the issuance of area-wide general obligation bonds of the borough in an amount not to exceed the sum of $33,320,000 to finance the cost in whole or in part of such public roads, facilities, and lands, and submitting the proposition to the voters at the November 5th, 2024 regular borough election.
Okay, I understand we have the main motion on the floor. So is there discussion? We have some amendments.
Assemblymember Campbell.
Okay, Assemblymember Gamble, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to offer a couple of amendments. The first amendment, Lonnie, tell me if I'm not doing this right. Amendment OR 24-070 is, I move to amend ordinance 24-070 and IM 24-130 by inserting the following project to the ballot proposition for November 5th, 2024, and striking $33,320,000 throughout the ordinance and IM and inserting $34,270,000 in its place. The project name is Burma Road Safety Improvements, and the estimated project cost is $950,000. And I'd like to speak to it.
Okay, discussion on the amendment.
He just said he wanted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm sure in all the assembly members' packets and the mayor's packet, and Mr. Lundquist in here, in his email to all of us, basically spells it out. I use Burma Road several times during the year, and especially in the wintertime, you cannot get two cars past each other unless you both have four-wheel drive trucks and you put two wheels in the berm on each side, you can squeeze past each other. And these folks out there have waited years and years and years. In fact, I saw in here one place they've been waiting from the 70s. They've been promised since the 70s that some improvements would be made. And this isn't a redo of the road. It's just actually doing a little bit of widening so that they can do better snow removal in the wintertime. And there's some real blind spots, some safety concerns where unless it's night and your headlights are on, you can't see the other person coming the other way, and it's almost a one-lane road out there. So this just addresses some basic safety improvements and widening on the Burma Road. Thank you.
Other discussion regarding the amendment? Any objection to the amendment? Oh, okay,
I support this amendment.
okay. Assemblyperson Hours?
This one's just a little bit tough for me because while those are all valid concerns, there's not a lot of traffic on that road, and I feel like there's roads in the valley that are literally dangerous during the day, and so this one's just a tough one for me because of that, and whether when you look at a road that's got less traffic and spending some money, and in the scope of roads, it's not a lot of not a lot. But anyways, I'm throwing that out for discussion. If the sponsor kind of wants to respond to that, I am definitely mulling it in my head, and that's my heartburn on it. Like, how do we decide this road is over other roads we could put on this that have higher levels of traffic and have issues?
Deputy Mayor, did you have a comment?
Again, I think in 30 years or so, I've traveled the whole road maybe 3 or 4 times, and there's a reason for that.
Okay, Assemblyperson Campbell.
I'd like to add, I think there's probably more traffic than you realize out there right now. It's pretty, I won't say it's heavily used, but it's used quite frequently. And the folks that live in Big Lake and Houston and Willow to get out to the recreational areas or out to that area, they don't go all the way down Parks to Vine and then up KGB. They cut through Big Lake and they go down to Burma Road. And also, I just would like to add that this was a primary evacuation route during the Millers Reach fire, and it's still considered one of the primary evacuation routes for that area of Big Lake if something major should happen out there, or perhaps for Point Mac to get back into the middle of town if something major happens. So, thank you.
So is there any objection to the amendment? Okay, seeing none, then the amendment has passed. Do we have another amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
An amendment to OR 24-070, I move to amend OR 24-070 and IM 24-130 by inserting the following project to the ballot proposition for November 5th, 2024, and striking $34,270,000 throughout the ordinance and IM and inserting $35,890,000 in its place. The project name is Echo Lake Drive Improvements. Estimated project cost $1,620,000, and I'd like to speak to it. So this project is one that's almost ready to go. I think there needs to be a little bit more work done by staff to make it completely ready to go. It's been on the Big Lake RIP list for more than a decade, and it seems like every time it gets to the top of the RIP list and the RSA board changes its makeup, it gets tossed back to the bottom and it doesn't get done. This is one of the fastest growing areas of Big Lake out there in the Echo Lake area. I think there's already 80 homes that are built and there's several under construction right now. This road divides 2 lakes, actually 3. There's a smaller one out there also. And it's heavily used. It is a feeder road that feeds right onto South Big Lake Road. And I'm sure some of you saw the video that was sent and pictures of the condition of that road. And it, if you read that one letter or the email that came out, I mean, MTA has already upgraded the power lines out there. The fiber cable's already been put in. They just voted earlier this year an LID to have natural gas put down the road to where the paving would end, and this project would just actually be the final part of that subdivision or that whole area out there being ready to accept even more construction. So I think this is a great project. I'm not asking for a lot, and I'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
Discussion on the amendment? Any objection to the amendment? Okay, hearing none, and that amendment is passed. Do we have any more amendments? Okay. Further discussion on ordinance 24-070 as amended? Is there any objection? Okay, hearing none, and the legislation passes.
Madam Mayor, we are at introductions. Introduction for public hearing for
Okay.
September 3rd. Ordinance 24079, Ordinance 2480, Ordinance 2481 with accompanying resolution 2479, Ordinance 2482 with accompanying resolution 2480, Ordinance 24083, Ordinance 2484 with accompanying resolution 2481, Ordinance 2485 with accompanying resolution 2482, Ordinance 2487, and Ordinance 2488.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, oh, not there. Alrighty, so will somebody please, okay, Tim, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to move the introductions and set the public hearing date as read into the record by the clerk.
Okay, is there any objection? Okay, hearing none, and the legislation has been introduced. And the next item is the vacancy report, but as you saw, there was nobody on the vacancy report, so I think we can skip over that. Other new business, Madam Clerk, whenever you're ready.
Motion to amend something previously adopted, Ordinance 24072, an ordinance authorizing the borough to issue area-wide general obligation bonds in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $58,146,600, excuse me, to finance the acquisition, design, construction, major renovation, and renewal of educational related capital improvement projects in the borough, and to submit the question of the issuance of such bonds to the qualified voters of the borough at the November 5th, 2024 borough regular election.
Okay, Assemblyperson Fanoff, you have an amendment to move?
Yeah, the amendment was, or we don't need to move anything, right? Because it's already on floor.
I'm sorry?
Does it need to be moved so we can discuss it, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
through the mayor, yes, it has to be moved for it to be discussed.
I move the ordinance 24072.
No, the ordinance has already been.
Okay, the amendment. So I guess in order to potentially give some benefits that are needed to certain schools, we've asked the school board to give us a list of.
Sir, you need to move the amendment, not.
Point of order.
First.
Okay, What's the number on, I don't have it in front of me.
It's in your red folder.
Okay. I move to amend ordinance serial number 24072 and IM number 24132 as follows: to increase the total amount of the bond package by 1,925,000 for a total amount of 60,071,600 throughout the ordinance and IM, and insert whereas clause after the first clause to read. Do I need to read the whole thing with all the details?
I could read it if you'd like me to.
Please do, go ahead.
Whereas the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Assembly recognizes the important need to replace boilers at school facilities, and 3, to insert 2 additional whereas clauses just prior to the final 2 clauses to read, whereas the Matanuska-Susitna Borough School District has also supported placing needed capital repair projects on the bond proposition before the voters via Matanuska-Susitna Borough School Board Resolution 24-4, and whereas the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Assembly recognizes the backlog of capital repair and existing schools and the need to offer safe, accessible, and functioning learning environments for students, and add the following projects to the IM and the ordinance in section 3 and 5. Cottonwood Creek Elementary boiler replacement, estimated cost $300,000, with the estimated taxpayer, that 0.16 cents per 100,000 assessed value. Finger Lake Elementary boiler replacement, a cost $450,000, 25 cents per 100,000 assessed value. Snowshoe Elementary boiler replacement, $400,000, 22 cents for 100,000 for each 100,000 assessed value. Sutton Elementary HVAC control upgrade, $450,000, 25 cents per 100,000 assessed value. Wasilla Middle boiler replacement, $325,000, 18 cents per 100,000 assessed value.
You want to speak to it, sir?
Yes,
Okay.
after when we started just the charter one, there was a big project for bond potentially for all the projects, and I guess weeded out the ones that are more on the top priority. School administration has given us, these are the top 5, and it's really close to I think $2 million, and I almost want to know if they still have more life left, and if they do, then I would be willing to retract some of those. But if they urgently need to be done, or actually, I was going to ask Mr. Brown, do we have plan for these in the next budget to potentially work on replacing those, and there is time left, or is this something that in the next budget we cannot address? What's the plan for that?
Through the mayor to Mr. Fawnoff, what we had discussed and kind of tentatively agreed to was that we would look at each annual proposed budget and consider the retiring education debt service and plug that back into the annual capital budget specifically for schools to retain the ability to address deferred maintenance needs. As far as, let's hypothetically say, because this past year it was $2.1 million. If we were to put $2 million in the budget for that, the priorities for what that $2 million would be applied to, those priorities would come from the school district because they maintain those facilities. So yes, I think that's the intent going into the next budget cycle is Ms. Heindel and I will sit down, look at the retiring debt service and try to figure out what would be an appropriate number to program into the borough's annual capital budget to address school deferred maintenance.
Okay, to follow up, do you have or does anyone be able to tell us what the school has in saving for the capital? And
I can tell you that.
Okay, I'm whoever, if that's appropriate, I would like to hear that.
Okay, sure, go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
The district started the fiscal year this year with $20,757,143 in the unassigned fund balance. We already took care of the first 6 boilers on the list, so these are actually number 7 through 12. So the first 6 is the money that Mike talked about earlier. I think it's fiscally irresponsible to consider borrowing money when we have the money to do it out of pocket, not us, but the district, if they choose. And we've committed to putting in a couple million a year into helping them, which we did this year. So I will not be able to support this. It, like I said, the fiscal year that they just started had over 20 million in the unassigned fund balance, and they have other accounts for capital improvements, their CIP fund. They've got a renewal and replacement fund. Those two total $18 million. I could keep going, but I think you get the point, sir.
Does Assembly Young, is this numbers? Where were you getting these numbers from? Was this coming from the school or our finance department? I just want to know if that's the source of those numbers.
They're public, and Miss Cheyenne can come up and speak to them too. But they're all public.
Oh, she's here. Because if okay.
Go ahead.
I wouldn't leave you hanging. Through the mayor to Assemblymember Fonoff, those numbers came out of the district's fiscal year 23 financial statements.
Okay, so the secret. So
Yeah.
So they do have finance in place to cover 10 times more than what the amount that 2,000 is.
Well, I can't speak to what they plan on spending that money to, but they have that money. That is the dollar amount that is listed in their financial statements as unassigned fund balance.
So does that mean they potentially, if they were to use that money, they could build one of the charter schools out of pocket? Theoretically.
Theoretically, yes.
Okay. Well, with that, I think I would retract this amendment.
Okay, so how do we do that then? He wants to withdraw.
it.
Right.
That's different.
You want to withdraw your amendment, sir? Is that correct?
After what I heard, yes.
Okay. So do I have to ask if there's any objection? Is there any objection? Do you have objection or comment? Yeah, okay.
Comment and objection.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to ask a question first of the attorney. In terms of past school bonds, has the borough previously included capital renovation and repair like these on a school bond? Has that happened? Did that happen with our last school bond in 2011?
Yes, it did. That was the last time a school bond was on the ballot, was 2011. It's been quite some time since we've had one. But that did have things like power generators, energy upgrades, alarm systems, fire alarm systems, roofing, locker replacements, flooring replacements. In addition to building, that was a substantially bigger bond package. That was $215 million. In addition to building a couple of schools, plus an addition on a couple of schools. So it had both big projects and smaller.
Okay, thank you. And I know I looked at that too, and it was over 40 million. It was fields and generators, so a substantial portion of that bond went towards schools. And then to the manager's point about the fiscal impact to the borough, which is something I always look at. If we put this bond forward and the voters pass it, there is no requirement that we put all of this out as a bond. We do not have to go out and borrow all this money if we can find 20 million in the borough's own budget. We could spend that to build charter schools. There's no requirement. So I see the head nodding. So I'll take that as a yes.
That's correct. I don't have 20 million in the budget.
I want to make it clear I wasn't suggesting that, but the other point I wanted to get to is in this current fiscal budget, we've set aside about 2 million, or yes, in this fiscal budget that we passed, we include about 2 million. If this were to pass, could we put that 2 million we've already included in the budget to pay for the approximately 2 million in maintenance that's on this bond proposal if voters were to pass it?
through the mayor, the 2 million that's in the current budget's already allocated to projects.
Okay, so that would have to be for
The
next year.
budget cycle.
Okay. So I wanted to speak against withdrawing this amendment, for a couple of reasons, some of them repetitive from the last meeting, but I am a huge supporter of charter schools. And my own children went there. This, I think, is going to be more likely to pass if you have additional schools on it, because the people walking into the voting booth will see, oh, there's something for my kid, or as opposed to, oh, I don't have anybody that goes to those charter schools, I'm going to vote against it. And so I think from trying to support our charter schools and to support other schools, it's more likely to pass. I think there's more benefit across the borough, and while we have a contingent that goes to charter and correspondence schools, that's 25% about of our school population. We have 75% who are choosing not charter or correspondence school, and they have real needs in their schools to be kept up. I think we're a district of choice, and so I think that's charter, correspondence, and non-charter and correspondence. So I like to see those benefits get spread around. This is the top 5 listed by the school district. And it's a very, I would have preferred a larger amount, but I think this is a compromise. 2 million is really just a drop in the bucket. And while we've been throwing around some numbers for the school district, it's kind of like the borough. We got a lot of money in the bank, but we got a lot of things we're going to be spending on. So we can't just say we're going to go buy 200 trucks or we'll spend it all on roads. I don't think the manager would say we could do that without not being able to fund some of the other things. So I think we should not withdraw this amendment. I guess that's going to be the vote. And give this bond proposal the best chance of passing in the borough, and let the voters let us know that. I always think that's valuable to hear from the voters. So I hope you'll support me in continuing to have this amendment and then move the whole bond package forward.
Assemblyperson Hale, comments?
Yeah, thank you. I think that this amendment broadens the support base that we're going to see from the voters for the eventual bond package, and I think that it helps ensure that it will pass at the ballot box if more people see a benefit to their kids than just a select group. So I think it would help get this thing across the finish line, which we want to do.
Assemblyperson Gamble?
I guess I'm curious what the unassigned fund balance in 2011 was when they put all the little projects on that. If they have the money now to take care of $2 million in boilers, that's a very small amount for them to pick up, and I don't think we need to be adding it to the bond package. Thank you.
Assemblyperson McKee?
I can't think that small-ish amount added to what we put before the public is going to change anybody's mind. I don't know that it's an asset I don't think it's going to support it. We found the money before for things when Rob Yunt and Ole Larson were pushing for the boilers, and we got her done. And if there's $20 million in there, I remember when I was asking Todd Smolden, well, okay, so they like the READS Act, but you're going to take away the $1 million for the teachers to do the paperwork and so on and so forth. And his response to that was basically that the school district would find other ways to get that money, because they just didn't need to put that in there specifically. So I can't support an amendment to it, because I think the way it initially went was I support the initial, but not the amendments.
Okay, further discussion on the amendment?
On the withdrawal.
Yes, the withdrawal of the amendment. Thank you, ma'am. Deputy Mayor?
I'm going to support the withdrawal of the amendment. And to me, adding on to the bond is just going to drive more voters away from, in my theory, drive more voters away from accepting it. And just even if it's a couple of $1 million towards regular schools, I don't think there's enough there to persuade people to vote for it.
Further discussion, Assemblyperson Fano.
Yeah, my kids go to charter school, so I fully support that. And I actually talked to some of the principals and people of the charter school that it would be they'd have to put up a very good, I guess, campaign of reaching out to people and informing them how important it is. And those parents who came and spoke the other meeting, they all need to be informed public. So, and I think on their own, with the right amount of effort, they should be able to pass. And I would be fully, I was the one that was also supporting it, and I'm going to continue to support it and share my support. But considering the amount that's on there, because if they don't use that money, I mean, what is going to happen is it's going to turn out somebody, whether it's the teachers or whatever the unions or negotiations will start, and it's, you know, it's still going to be used, but not might as well use it, that money partially, and that's only would be less than 10% of what they're sitting on towards this. I'm sure there was potentially up to, I think, was it $17 million in the one. So technically, all their full list could be covered with the amount that they have. This is only 2 million of it. So that's my reasoning of, I think, to pull back on the support, but still continue to support the charter school, and so that they can still get enough votes.
Okay, there is objection, right? Further, you want to discuss some more?
Just one last comment.
Okay.
I agree this is a really small amount. I would have wanted more, because I think it could be a better chance, but that's what I thought this assembly maybe could support. And I just, again, I don't, I think this would be very difficult to pass no matter how much work the charter schools do without additional schools in there. I think any bond package you see has a spread, and there's a reason for that. So I can hear the tone up here, but I want to make that last pitch. So rough.
Okay, so I think we're ready to.
So if we're just trying to buy the votes, let's add another $50 million and then into the bigger bond, like, or the 2011 or whatever it was, and then at the same time lower the mill rate from a different direction. So then we're specifically aligning these money for those repairs. Then I guess we would be controlling, but then the school gets less of the money because over the 70% that we're giving. So we can play that game, but I think that's the politics. So that's where I would want to distance from. And but I'm going to continue to support the charter schools, but not the buying votes part, I guess.
Okay, so the question before you is to withdraw the amendment. So I guess, are we ready to go ahead and vote then?
If the members in the room can go ahead on vote on whether it should be withdrawn. Assemblymember Yunt.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, the amendment's withdrawn with Assemblymember Hale and now is opposed.
Okay, so now we are back to the main motion for, no,
It's already been done.
oh, okay, so that's already done.
That's it.
Okay, alrighty. So the next item on our agenda is referrals, and there are no referrals, there are no reconsiderations, and we are to the point of parting comments. Assemblyperson Yount, parting comments, sir?
I hope everybody has a great night. Tonight was a really good meeting. It's nice to see, we have 7 really talented people up there, 8, 7 with votes. And we get a lot of good work done together when we work as a team. So I thought it was a great night, and I hope everybody drives safe. Thanks.
Mr. Attorney, parting comments? No. Assemblyperson McKee, parting comments? Deputy Mayor, parting comments?
Thank you for everyone for coming out, and thank you, Lord, for bringing us all together. Please bless our valley. Please bless our state. Take care of our residents. May we love one another. In Jesus' name, amen.
Parting comments, Assemblyperson Hale?
Yeah, I'm glad I'm no longer a criminal for having unlicensed animals, so that's probably a good thing. Thank you very much.
So we can cancel the call to the Palmer Police, but they don't need to meet you in the parking lot then. Assemblyperson Nowers,
Yeah, I really
parting
wanted to talk
comment.
more about dogs and cats, but I can't top that. I just wanted to also congratulate Vicki and Bruce Bush, who were the Farm Family of the Year. And so both of them spoke at the ceremony at the State Fair and talking about getting their business started and selling rhubarb to start with, which I don't know how anybody sells rhubarb because it grows like a weed, but people do, and that's how they got their start. And now they have the Bruce's Bunches stand, and they're an icon in the valley. And so just encourage everybody to stop by their stand and support other local farmers. It was a really well-attended gathering and so much ingenuity and things going on with the farmers markets and the farmers. So please get out there and support and congratulate them and also support your local farms. We didn't talk about it, but the coho runs, the silver runs are awful here. And that's on top of a horrible king salmon season. I mean, we might as well take that fish off our seal is how I feel about it right now. And I know our Fish and Wildlife Commission has been working their tails off to do something about it, but I just, you know, in our legislative priorities, I think we need to ring that bell even harder because those runs are almost non-existent, and it's not 1 year, it's been year after year after year. And that's part of why we live here, and it's our lifeblood, and it is also the lifeblood of people who depend on it, like the tackle shops and the guides, and I don't want to see it go away. So I want to just raise the flag on that, and I look forward to bringing back some legislation to try to deal with what is a really serious problem with strays in the valley and animals, unwanted animals ending up at the shelter. So, you know, whether that's how we did something tonight that, you know, obviously it was a law that a lot of people weren't complying with, and I'm glad to get rid of those, but it's like there's still the underlying problem of our shelter being overloaded and people not being as responsible maybe they should be, or sometimes some things happen, and getting them reunited. So I look forward to working on that, and hopefully there's still some sun out there to get out.
Madam Clerk, parting comments? Oh,
One thing I forgot was out here on Friar Tuck out by King Arthur, the cleanup that was done in the community. And I just wanted to give a big shout out to them. It's a before and after. And thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, parting comment? Assemblyperson Gamble, parting comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm surprised you didn't mention the meeting that we're having tomorrow morning, Mr. Manager, at the port.
Saved it for you.
Did you? Oh, thank you. Yeah. So tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we're meeting with Senator Murkowski's staff. Is there more than that are going to be out there? Oh, Sullivan's staff. I'm sorry. Yeah, to talk about the port, and I'm excited about it. We want to keep that momentum going, like we spoke about earlier tonight. What's that? It's at the port. At the port at 9 a.m. I too have been a criminal for years with my animals. I had no idea until Assemblymember Yunt said something about this a couple of weeks to me, that it was a requirement. So I'm glad we dealt with that tonight. And I really appreciate the support from all of you for the road bond package, adding my amendments to it. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Assemblyperson Fana, parting comments?
Thank you so much. I am happy we did what we did, but I do think that the resolution that we passed, considering that we only had 3 days and not another time and more time to almost work down, and question was called to not be able to put amendment forward, is unfortunate, because if we're slowing down the project or momentum that we have going for potentially several years, I'm a little bit disappointed in that, because I would love to see the development going there, and then also could. So that's just my position on that. So if any of the people who supported it would want to reconsider it, so we could amended, that'd be great, but with that, I think that's the only thing, but I'm going to continue to speak in favor and bring all my support behind the charter schools, and hopefully we'll get them passed, and maybe school can pitch in so that it'll be less money to the actual residents and more money to, that they cover, so we can build maybe for less money to the taxpayer, or build more schools for that. And I think we're happy to live here. We enjoy a lot of the things we have here in the valley, and we're going to do our best to continue to do so and speak for the interest of the people. That's it.
There's no objection. We will adjourn at 8. Yeah, I got. Assemblyperson, didn't I get you at the very beginning? Okay, that's okay. So we will adjourn at 9 p.m.
You will now be disconnected.